Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere you really don't want to be. But that's the point, right? You're not just watching history, you're living it one breath at a time. So close your eyes and imagine this. You're ankle deep in red mud, thick jungle humidity turning your clothes into wet napkins. The cicadas scream louder than a jet engine, and your boots feel 3 sizes too small from the heat. You squint through dripping lashes at a sign that reads, "Welcome to Bien Hoa," but no one's smiling. Your sergeant slaps a hand on your shoulder and says, "You volunteered, right?" That's how this starts. You've landed in Vietnam, 1968, not long after Tet. You're still a little stunned by the smell. It's something between diesel fuel, wet jungle, and something older. Something that smells like the earth's been hiding a secret, and you're the poor soul who's about to dig it up. You just got off a C-130 transport, and even though the engine noise is gone, your ears ring with the same sick anticipation you had before getting your wisdom teeth pulled, if your dentist had been wearing a flak vest. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop your location and local time in the comments, so I know who's crawling through this with me. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You were supposed to be infantry, just a regular grunt with a rifle and a bad haircut, but then they handed out this special assignments, and you, bless your heart, checked the wrong box. You're small, wiry, calm under pressure. You don't panic in tight spaces. Congratulations. You're now one of the unlucky few chosen to become a tunnel rat. No one exactly explains the job at first. They just gesture vaguely toward a covered hole in the ground and say, "You'll see." It's always something like that. You'll see. And you do. Your first step into the jungle feels like walking into a sauna that forgot it was supposed to stop heating up. The trees aren't tall, they're dense. The undergrowth claws at your arms like it wants to take souvenirs. Bugs you've never even seen in books land on your neck like they own the place. Your helmet already has sweat pooling in the padding, and you haven't even seen the first tunnel yet. Then someone points. A dark patch beneath a clump of brush, just big enough for a kid to wiggle through. Except you're not a kid, and there's nothing childish about what waits in there. You shine your flashlight down into it. Nothing. Just dirt. Compact, unforgiving, and eerily quiet. You glance back, hoping someone will say, "Just kidding." No one does. And here's where the reality check slaps you. You're about to crawl, alone, into a hole that's likely booby-trapped, may have armed enemies waiting, could collapse, and is just wide enough for your chest to scrape both sides. You probably won't survive this. Just saying. You lower yourself, and slowly. Your pistol's out, safety off. The flashlight beam stutters as you move. Dust floats through the air like it's trying to whisper secrets. Every sound is louder down here. Your breathing, the soft scrape of your elbows on the tunnel wall, the click of your tongue as you try to swallow your nerves. Tunnel networks, known as the CUC tunnels in the north and other variants elsewhere, are marvels of grim engineering. Some are barely a crawl space. Others are multi-tiered labyrinths with storage, hospitals, living quarters, and sniper exits. Historians still argue whether these were originally for resisting the French or were greatly expanded only during the American involvement. But one thing's certain, the Viet Cong knew how to use the earth as armor. You pass your first clay wall, checkpoint, and freeze. There's a noise, not a loud one, a shift in air, a brush. Could be a rat, could be a fighter, could be your imagination playing jazz with your adrenal glands. Either way, you press forward, because that's the job, above ground. The rest of your unit is sweeping the jungle, stepping over tripwires, pausing every few feet to scan for snipers. But down here, it's just you, your nerves, and a pistol that echoes like thunder if you have to fire it. You crawl until you reach a bend. Tunnels never go straight for long. That's a rule. You make the turn and nearly scream. A rat scurries over your forearm, eyes glinting. The tunnel rat meets the tunnel rat. You chuckle softly, mostly to keep from losing it. That's your first encounter. Congrats. But what's worse is when you hit your first dead end. Nothing there. No enemy. No trap. Just a wall of packed earth. You reverse crawl. It takes longer and feels more claustrophobic. Ever tried backing up through a tunnel with your face in the dirt and your nerves fraying like an old rope? It's like yoga, but with death and darkness and a recurring soundtrack of, what if there's someone right behind me? You emerge blinking in the sunlight. One of the guys offers you a canteen. You nod thanks, too shaky to speak. Your hands are covered in red clay, your fingernails packed with dirt. The sergeant pats your back like you've just completed a minor chore. He nods. You'll do. And so, just like that, you're a tunnel rat. Later that night, you lie in your tent and feel the ground below you. You swear it pulses. You think about that tunnel, about what could have gone wrong. You realize you've stopped blinking properly, like you're afraid to close your eyes. There's a lizard skittering along the canvas wall. You flinch at the sound. Your bunkmate, some guy from Kentucky who smells like chewing tobacco and shame, leans over and says, "First time's always the worst. Wait till you find one with spiders." Sleep doesn't come easy. Your dreams are narrow and damp. You keep jerking awake, sure you're stuck again. The jungle has ways of getting inside you, and it starts fast. One quirky fact you learn quickly. Tunnel rats have shorter life expectancy than frontline grunts, but the brass rarely talks about it. It's not good PR, so your reward is an extra beer ration and maybe, if you're lucky, fewer above-ground patrols. Fair trade? The next morning, you're handed a new flashlight, a sharper knife, and some vague advice like trust your ears. There's no handbook. You learn on the job, or you don't learn at all. One of the guys carves a tally mark into the stock of his pistol after every tunnel. He has 13. You try not to count yours yet. Seems unlucky. And even now, as you sip lukewarm coffee and pretend to enjoy scrambled powdered eggs, you already know. You'll be crawling into another one today. Another hole. Another belly of the beast. Another chance to come back changed, or not come back at all. The jungle doesn't care. The tunnel certainly doesn't. But maybe, just maybe, you'll find a rhythm in the crawl, a strange, muddy heartbeat to match your own. You wake up with your shirt glued to your back, the air in your tent thick enough to chew. Outside, the jungle hums with its usual angry buzz, a symphony of insects doing their best impression of static. You roll out of your cot and your boots squelch. Not from mud, just your own sweat. It's still early, but the sun is already grinding down on the canopy like a hot plate on wet leaves. You shovel a spoonful of gray mush into your mouth. Supposedly oatmeal. Tastes like warm wallpaper paste. Across from you, someone tells a joke about a guy who brought a pet iguana into a tunnel. You all laugh. Too loud, too fast. It's not even that funny, but laughing means you're not thinking. Thinking is dangerous. Today's mission sounds simple enough on paper. Recon and clear a network recently discovered outside a burned-down village. A small entrance was spotted beneath what used to be a chicken coop. You sling your web gear over your shoulder, and someone hands you a fresh flashlight and a .45. Standard issue. You check the mag twice. No one says it, but everybody knows. Once you're down there, it's just you and that sidearm. If it jams, misfires, or bounces off a helmet, well, I guess you better start biting. You reach the site by mid-morning. It's always a little surreal, walking through places where people used to live. Burned walls still smolder faintly, and charred toys at the ground like broken memories. You catch yourself staring at a tricycle wheel for too long. It's stuck in a blackened tree root like it grew there. The soil crunches under your boots. You look up and the sergeant's already pointing at the hole. The opening is barely visible. A few clumps of loose earth, maybe a footprint near the edge. You kneel down, listening. The entrance breathes cold air. That's never a good sign. Cold means depth. Depth means risk. You lower yourself in, inch by inch. First your boots, then your knees. You keep the flashlight pointed down. The beam catches a spiderweb, one of those massive golden orb weavers, and you whisper an apology as you swipe it aside. You're officially inside. You begin to crawl. You're learning to move with your hips, not your arms. Arms are too clumsy. You lead with your torso, your knees scraping the sides, elbows bent at angles that make yoga look forgiving. It smells like loam and wet socks, and something older than human history. The flashlight flickers once, but keeps going. You breathe through your nose, shallow and slow. Your fingers find a groove in the wall, deliberate. This tunnel's been reinforced. Wooden beams, closely spaced. That's a dead giveaway. The Viet Song expected this one to last. You press forward, heart pounding. Somewhere up ahead, the air thickens. You know that means a chamber. And you find one. Small, circular, just tall enough to crouch. Old campfire, soot blackens the ceiling. A broken sandal rests in the corner next to a rusted cooking pot. You squat, listening. Nothing but the sound of your breath and the faint drip, drip, drip of water on clay. You reach forward, and your hand brushes a tripwire. You freeze. The wire is thin, almost hair-like. You follow it slowly with your flashlight until it disappears into the corner. At the end, a crude explosive held together with nails and something that looks like string and repurposed metal. Handmade but lethal. You whisper a word you shouldn't say in polite company. Then, slowly, surgically, you reach in your side pouch and pull out the wire cutters. You slide them in, holding your breath, and snip. Nothing happens. You exhale. Congratulations. You just avoided becoming debris. You back out of the chamber and press forward. These tunnels are alive. They breathe, creak, whisper. The dirt talks to you if you listen long enough. You reach a fork, left or right. You remember what Jenkins said, always go where the air feels warmer. You pick left. 100 feet later, you realize why. You find another chamber. This one's worse. A sleeping area, maybe cloth hammocks, decaying food stores, and what's that in the corner? You crawl over. It's a box. Metal. Locked. You pry it open with your knife. Inside are maps. Hand-drawn. Ink still visible. You smile. Intel. A good day. Suddenly, sound. Behind you. You spin, pistol raised. Your flashlight beam darts. Movement, maybe, or just your own shadow playing games. You hold still. Every hair on your body stands up. You're not alone down here. But then nothing. You inch back toward the surface, maps stuffed into your pouch, your spine tingling with every move. You're already drafting the story for the guys up top, making it sound cooler, calmer than it was. You know the drill. As you reach the surface, light stings your eyes. The sergeant's there, chewing a cigarette filter. You hand over the maps and nod once. He grunts approval, a rare compliment. Back at camp, you clean your gear in silence. Your hands shake when no one's looking. There's a photo pinned above your cot. A girl and a dog. You don't remember putting it there. Someone must have thought it would help. It doesn't. Later that evening, you sit around the squad fire. Someone passes a pack of Lucky Strikes. You light one, even though you don't smoke. It feels like the thing to do. A guy named Torres starts talking about the time he met a cobra in a tunnel. Says he tried to shoot it, but missed and gave himself tinnitus. You laugh. Everyone does. It's a terrible story. You're learning the lingo. Boom booms are mines. Crunchies are enemy patrols. Fireflies are tracer rounds at night. And tunnel kisses. Those are the little bruises you get on your elbows from crawling too long. You take off your boots and dump out enough dirt to plant a vegetable garden. The red clay here stains everything. Your socks, your skin, even your dreams. One mainstream fact everyone keeps repeating. Tunnel rats averaged 5 feet 7 inches or shorter, mostly volunteers, mostly under 25. Young, skinny, and, let's face it, too dumb to say no. But they had guts. You try not to think about what else they had to lose. And here's a fringe tidbit for you. Some tunnel rats swore the Viet Song used bees. Actual bees in hollowed-out clay pots, rigged as living booby traps. Others say that's nonsense. But you hear a lot of buzzing now when you sleep. That night, you wake up suddenly. A noise outside? A dream? You're not sure. You sit up breath tight in your chest, heart racing. Then you laugh. Just a frog. You lie back down, staring at the canvas above you. And in the back of your mind, you're going into another tunnel tomorrow. They'll hand you another flashlight, another pistol, maybe another sip of whiskey if someone's got it. And you'll go. Because down there in the dark with the earth pressing close on all sides, you feel something strange. You feel needed. The morning starts the same way most of them do. Wet socks, sticky air, and someone coughing like they've got a lawnmower engine in their lungs. You rub your eyes and sit up, stretching just enough to regret it. Every muscle protests. Tunnel work isn't just mentally brutal. It leaves you physically twisted, bruised, and sore in places you didn't even know existed. You shuffle to the mess tent. Someone's burning rice. Again, you eat it anyway because the alternative is going hungry, and hunger makes you shaky, and shaky fingers down in the tunnels get you killed. You gulp the coffee. Thick, burnt, tastes like tire water. Still better than yesterday. Today, the mission's got a twist. You're not going down alone this time. They're pairing you with Corporal McCready, a lanky guy from Boston with a permanent 5 o'clock shadow, and the eyes of someone who's seen a little too much. He talks a mile a minute above ground, but in a tunnel, quiet as the grave. They say he once crawled 300 feet through a collapsed section using only his belt knife to dig his way out. You don't know if that's true, but the way his hands never stop fidgeting tells you something's off. Probably more than one thing. You both ride out in the back of a deuce and a half with 3 other guys. The jungle zips by in a blur of green and brown and dripping wet. A fine mist clings to everything, even your eyelashes. You wipe your face and glance at McCready. He's carving something into the wooden grip of his .45. For notches already there. You wonder if he's adding another, or just preparing. The target is a suspected supply network just outside Trang Bang, near one of those villages that always seems deserted and somehow too quiet. Your boots sink into the soft clay as you hop off the truck. The ground's been disturbed. Shallow holes, broken grass. You spot the entrance right away. It's too perfect, like someone tried to hide it, but gave up halfway. That's always suspicious. Could be bait. A scout team sweeps the area while you and McCready prep. You check your gear, again and again. Battery, loaded pistol, backup knife, compass, tiny mirror, extra flashlight bulb. You nod at each other and drop to your knees. This entrance is wider than most, which is unsettling. Wide means they're expecting traffic. McCready gestures for you to go first. Not out of laziness, it's just habit. The smaller guy leads. You slide in. The initial passage is easy by tunnel standards. Room to move your shoulders, even turn your head. But that comfort doesn't last. After 20 feet, the walls close in like the tunnel's remembering what it's supposed to be, suffocating. You whisper back, watch your 6, and hear a soft reply, always. The air smells faintly of gasoline. That's a red flag. Could be booby-trapped fuel containers. Could be part of a cooking station. Could be they just soak the walls to collapse them on intruders. The problem is, you never really know until it's too late. You reach a side chamber. This one has vertical shafts, storage pockets, maybe, or escape hatches, or murder holes. You shine your light up one and immediately regret it. Dead bats. A lot of them. Strung together. Ritualistic or just bad luck. Historians still argue whether the Viet Cong used psychological warfare through deliberate horror elements in tunnel design. But right now, you're not waiting to ask a scholar. You move on. McCready taps your boot, signal to stop. You hold your breath. Listen. Then you hear it. Soft scraping. Not animal. Not wind. Human. Close. You and McCready draw your weapons slowly, inching toward the noise. Rounding a bend, your flashlight beam catches a wall of woven bamboo. McCready looks at you. You nod. He grips the edge and peels it aside like a curtain. Behind it, an underground room opens up. Crude bunks. Medical supplies. A kettle. It's abandoned, but only just. The fire pit is still warm. Steam curls from a tin cup. Someone was here minutes ago. You search quickly, quietly. A notebook, maps, some strange medicine jars. You pocket the notebook and the maps. And then McCready freezes. You follow his gaze to the far corner. A boy, no more than 12. Eyes wide, back pressed against the dirt. No weapon, just shaking. Terrified. You lower your gun. McCready does too. There's a moment of awkward stillness. The boy bolts toward a back passage. You let him go. Some days you're not in the mood to be a killer. Backtracking through that tunnel feels heavier. Not physically, mentally. You don't talk on the way out. Just breathing, crawling, listening to your thoughts bumping around your skull like loose marbles. Outside, the sergeant doesn't ask questions. He just takes the notebook and maps and says, "Good work." McCready lights a cigarette. Doesn't say a word. Later, you sit near the perimeter fence, listening to the jungle. Night has fallen. You hear monkeys calling from the trees. Distant artillery rumbles like a storm you're ignoring. A frog plops into a puddle near your boot. You don't flinch. You turn over the notebook. It's mostly numbers. Vietnamese script. Some French. Probably old contacts or troop movements. You hope it helps somebody. Probably won't help you. You remember something the old medic said last week. Tunnels are like memories, deep, winding, and full of things you wish you hadn't found. That sticks with you. The quirky fact of the day, some tunnel rats used pet mongooses as pest control. Little guys were fearless and loved going after snakes and rats. Problem was, they didn't always come back, and when they did, they weren't in great moods. One guy tried training a mongoose named General Patton. It bit his finger off. Lesson learned. And that mainstream fact, the average tunnel rat spent less than 20 minutes underground per mission, but every minute stretched like hours. Adrenaline does weird things to time. McCready finally speaks. Kid reminded me of my brother. Back home. Same stupid haircut. He laughs once, then stops. You nod. Not much to say after that. You clean your weapon in silence. The clay never comes off completely. It sticks in the grooves, under your fingernails, behind your ears. You wonder if you'll ever feel clean again. You crawl into your cot and lie there, arms behind your head. The canvas roof above you looks like the inside of a tunnel. And for a second, you forget where you are. Or maybe you just wish you were somewhere else entirely. You wake to a sound you never get used to. Helicopter blades thudding through the dawn like an angry god knocking on the sky. You blink into the light. One boot already halfway on, brain not yet sure if you're alive or in one of those awful dreams again. But the rotors don't lie. Huey inbound means someone else got hit. Or someone found something. By the time you've got your gear on, you're sweating like a pot roast. Morning in the jungle is not refreshing. It's just yesterday's heat reheated. You gulp down a cup of that gritty camp coffee, your tongue now trained to ignore the flavor entirely. McCready's already up, sharpening his knife with that 1,000-yard stare that says he hasn't slept much. Again, you nod at each other. No words needed. The sergeant's briefing is quick. A recon patrol stumbled across a collapsed tunnel entryway after a firefight. Could be part of an old Viet Somme command post. Or nothing. Your job? Find out. The area is known among the guys as the Devil's Elbow. You don't ask why. Every name out here has a story, and most of them don't end with a happy reunion. You load into the chopper with 2 infantry grunts and McCready. It lifts off with a roar, wind slapping your face like an impatient barber. Below, the canopy stretches out like a restless green ocean, hiding gods, ghosts, and gorillas. The LZ is hot, not in the bullets flying way, but that every leaf is hiding a snake or a mine way. You drop into waist-high elephant grass. It hisses as you pass through, like it resents your presence. The hole is jagged, partially collapsed from artillery. You crouch, eyeing the edges. Some of the support beams are blackened, but others look freshly cut. That means it's been maintained recently. You don't like that. McCready pulls out a small handheld periscope and peers into the darkness. It's still alive down there, he mutters, and you believe him. You drop in first, as usual. This tunnel breathes differently. The air is cooler, but somehow heavier, like it's holding secrets too big for the space. You slide on your belly, inch by inch, flashlight sweeping. Cracks in the clay reveal roots like wiry veins. One of them brushes your neck, and you flinch, heart hammering. The passage quickly narrows, the earth closing in like a hungry mouth. You pass through what feels like a dozen tight bends, each one threatening to trap you. At one point, the ceiling dips so low you have to exhale just to squeeze through. You wonder how many others never made it past this choke point. Then suddenly, open space. A chamber, round, reinforced with wooden beams. Carvings on the wall, rough, etched with care. Not military, personal. One's a face, another looks like a lotus. McCready slides in behind you and mutters, "Looks like somebody left a diary." You nod toward the opposite wall. There, half buried in the dirt, is a cache. Ammo boxes, food tins, even a radio wrapped in plastic sheeting. This wasn't just a pass-through tunnel. This was a hub, probably part of a larger spider web of underground routes, the kind commanders dream about. And then, click, you freeze. That sound didn't come from you. Didn't come from McCready either. You scan the chamber. Your flashlight catches a glint. A wire. Tensioned. It runs along the floor and vanishes beneath one of the ammo boxes. Improvised tripwire trap. Triggered either by a step or a shift in weight. You back away slowly, motioning to McCready to stay still. He mouths, "We're good," but the sweat running down his jaw says otherwise. You disarm the trap with surgical care. Your hands are steady now, oddly calm. It's the hours and hours of doing this that numb the panic. The wire is rusted but live. The mechanism? A mortar shell, jury-rigged as a pressure mine. One wrong move, and you'd have both been two meat stains on a wall. But not today. You press deeper into the tunnel network, charting as you go. Turns, levels, ventilation shafts. This system is extensive. It's like the Viet Cong were building a second country underground. Historians still argue whether they planned it that way from the start or adapted as U.S. bombing intensified. Either way, it's impressive and terrifying. You crawl into another chamber, this one different. It's a hospital. Crude, yes, but unmistakable. Stained bandages, medical tools, some still shiny. Bottles of alcohol, a canvas cot. There's even a surgical mask hanging from a nail. The walls are smeared with soot and streaks that may or may not be dry blood. You breathe through your shirt, and then you hear it. The softest sound. A wheeze? A cough? You spin, flashlight searching. And there, tucked into a far corner under a pile of burlap, is a man. Barely conscious. Emaciated. Wounded. Viet Cong. You pause, gun drawn. McCready shifts behind you. But the man doesn't move. He's too far gone. Eyes glassy, breath shallow. Maybe left behind after a retreat. Maybe a medic was supposed to return and never did. You lower your pistol. What do we do? McCready shrugs. We leave him. He's already gone. You nod. You don't like it. But he's right. Before leaving, you take one last look around. The medical tools, the maps, the structure. It's clear this was more than a tunnel. It was a lifeline. One small part of a vast hidden body. Back above ground, the sunlight feels offensive. Too bright. Too loud. You hand the maps and the medical notes to the sergeant, who grunts and says, "Good pull." McCready smokes again. Still doesn't talk much. You sit on an ammo crate, sipping water that tastes like metal and warm regret. Someone's telling a joke nearby. Something about a tunnel rat who married a bar girl and got robbed of his boots on his honeymoon. You chuckle, not because it's funny, but because it means you're not crawling through clay at this exact moment. Quirky fact time. Some tunnel rats used to carry toy snakes in their packs to toss behind them, scaring off pursuers or just messing with newer guys. Not always funny. One guy tripped over his own prank and broke 2 ribs. That was the last time the plastic snake made an appearance. And that mainstream fact for your mental scrapbook. By 1968, the Siuchi Tunnel stretched over 150 miles, weaving beneath American bases, villages, rivers, even connecting different provinces. They had schools, kitchens, forges, and clinics, all carved out by hand. Night falls, and you lie in your cot, one arm thrown across your face. You try to sleep, but the memory of that half-dead man in the dark lingers like a whisper. You don't know his name. You don't know if he made it. You probably never will. But you'll remember his eyes. Because sometimes it's not the gunfights or the traps that haunt you. It's the quiet. Morning again. But this one feels different. Not because of the weather, still hot, still sticky, but because of the silence. No coughing, no idle banter from the guys in the tents. Not even the usual hum of generators sputtering awake. It's that ominous hush that wraps itself around a camp when bad news is about to knock on the door and let itself in. You sit up slowly, your body reminding you of yesterday's tunnel like a passive-aggressive spouse. The bruises, the muscle cramps, the ache deep in your knees, they're all back to say hello. You stretch, wince, and reach for your boots, which are still wet from last night's rain. Or maybe it was sweat. Who knows anymore? McCready walks by, face tighter than usual. No cigarette today. That alone is enough to make you raise an eyebrow. You follow him to the briefing tent without a word. The sergeant's already there, a map splayed out across a folding table like some kind of ominous picnic. There's a collapse, he says. We lost contact with a rat team 3 clicks north. That was 18 hours ago. You feel that drop in your stomach, the one that happens when you know what's coming next. They were in Sector Lima 4. Deep system. New branch. No return signal. No motion. So now, it's a recovery mission. McCready doesn't say a word. He just grabs his gear and starts walking. The Jeep ride is short and quiet. The only sound being the wheels crunching over the gravel and your own heartbeat trying to predict the future. But there's no predicting anything in this place. Just reacting. The entrance to the tunnel is a narrow fissure beneath a dead tree. A hole barely wide enough to slide into. One of the techs has already set up a relay dish and an antenna, trying to ping the lost team's comms. No luck so far. You suit up again. You've done it so many times now it's automatic. But this time, every buckle feels heavier. Every strap, a warning. McCready pats your shoulder. You lead, he says. As always, you slide into the earth. This tunnel has no personality. Some of them are shaped by their builders, sloping, straight, angular. This one feels like it wasn't designed at all, just clawed into the clay by desperate hands. The walls are jagged, the dirt loose. You move cautiously, try not to trigger another collapse. 10 feet in, and the smell hits you. Not rot, not quite. Something like wet metal and moldy canvas. You flash your light over a discarded boot. American make. McCready taps twice on the wall behind you. A signal to keep moving. You pass a junction. One path collapsed. Nothing but a choking pile of clay and rock. The other? Still intact, but just barely. You wedge yourself through and keep crawling. That's when you see the first sign, a boot print. Small. Fresh. Couldn't be more than a day old. Then something else. A flare wrapper. Torn. Bright red. The kind issued only to tunnel rat teams. You pocket it. The next chamber you find is partially caved in, but there's room to crawl around the rubble. And there, propped against the wall, eyes closed, head tilted, is one of the missing men. Alive. Barely. You scramble to him, checking his pulse. Faint, but there. His name patch reads Dwyer. His lips are cracked, blood-caked, and he mumbles something you can't quite catch. McCready slides in behind you. That's one, he mutters. Where's the rest? Dwyer jerks suddenly, grabbing your wrist. Trap, he whispers. Tripwire, ahead, they didn't sit. And then he passes out again. You and McCready share a look. A dozen thoughts race between you, without either of you saying a word. You drag Dwyer into the rear pocket of the chamber and begin administering what little aid you can. Water, salt tablets, quick bandage over a leg wound. Then you scout ahead. 15 feet, then 20, then wire. You spot it barely in time. Thin, hairline fishing wire across the width of the tunnel. It's connected to what looks like a pair of glass bottles rigged with something darker inside. Probably gasoline and phosphorus. Classic VC. You disarm it slowly, whispering a curse under your breath. This is what being a tunnel rat is. Crawling through death's waiting room, hoping the receptionist is out for lunch. You press on, heart pounding. Another 10 feet, and you find the second man. Not as lucky as Dwyer. He's slumped forward, his body riddled with shrapnel. No sign of a trap, maybe just caught in a collapsing wall. McCready removes the man's dog tags. He says the name out loud, softly. Matthews. He was 19. You both carried Dwyer out. It takes hours. Your arms are jelly. The tunnel fights you every inch of the way. Roots tug at your gear. The clay shifts behind you like it's trying to reclaim its prey. But somehow, you make it. Outside, medics rush in. Dwyer's loaded onto a stretcher. He'll live, they say. Maybe. Matthews goes in a body bag. You sit down, knees shaking, gulping air like a man pulled from underwater. The sun is setting, casting long shadows over the jungle. Everything looks gold and red, like a painting done in war colors. And you think about what Dwyer said, it didn't see. That's the thing about tunnel traps. They don't blink, they don't announce themselves. 1 second you're alive, the next you're a memory in someone else's story. Your quirky tidbit of the day, some tunnel rats developed a superstition about carrying spoons from the mess hall. So they brought luck. One guy wore his on a string around his neck. Swore it deflected a bullet once. Probably nonsense, but you've still got one tucked in your pack. Just in case. Mainstream fact, U.S. Army tunnel rats weren't officially recognized with their own unit designation. They were just volunteers, or sometimes voluntold, from infantry units. No medals, no special training manuals, just guts and a flashlight. As the night wraps around the camp, you lie on your cot and stare at the ceiling. Somewhere beneath this jungle are hundreds of miles of tunnels, and God only knows how many more like Matthews. Silent, buried, forgotten. And you're still crawling, still listening for wires, still hoping the next tunnel doesn't become your tomb. You never quite sleep after a recovery mission. Your body might shut down, but your mind keeps wandering tunnels. It revisits every wire you almost missed, every breath you took in the dark that could have been your last. You wake before the bugle sounds, drenched in sweat and twisted in your mosquito net like you were wrestling it all night. You swing your legs off the cot, reach for your canteen, and try not to think about Matthews. The camp is buzzing this morning. The kind of buzz that means someone up the chain of command is coming down for a visit. Officers in crisp fatigues walk a little too clean, bark a little too loud, and ask too many questions about terrain they've never crawled through. You're not in the mood, but McCready gives you that look, the one that says play along or we all get latrine duty. So you're on best behavior when Captain Stillwell, who looks more like a man who should be teaching high school civics, asks you to walk him through a demo of tunnel entry protocol. You keep your answers short, your sarcasm to a minimum. Mostly, yes sir, flashlight goes in the left hand. No sir, we don't carry rifles down there. It's a bit tight, sir. Stillwell blinks. Then what do you use? You smile politely and hold up your .45 and your K-bar. One for noise, one for quiet. He doesn't laugh. After the dog and pony show, you're back in the field. Not for recon, not today. Today, you're mapping. It's a job few respect, but one every rat knows matters. Because one wrong turn underground and you're not just lost, you're lost forever. You trudge out with McCready and a fresh-faced, new guy named Richie, who still thinks this whole thing is an adventure. His boots are shiny, his knife, polished, his hands, not yet calloused. You sigh. Stick close, you tell him. The entrance this time is under a broken pagoda, the kind that once stood over a family shrine. Now it's just shattered tile and the smell of moss. Someone painted symbols on the stone, red characters, faded by time and war. Richie snaps a photo, because of course he does. You drop it first. The tunnel here is drier than most. Dustier too. Your nostrils sting. The passage runs shallow for the first 10 meters, then spirals down like a clay snail shell. You mark every turn, every branch. Occasionally, McCready drops glow sticks behind you to mark your exit trail. That's when you hear the scratching. You freeze. It's faint, irregular. Not movement exactly, more like shifting, like something being dragged. You hold up a hand. Silence. Richie whispers, "What is that?" McCready raises a brow. "Could be rats." Richie swallows. "Like big rats." You glance at him. The four-legged kind, hopefully. You advance slowly. The tunnel opens into a small storage room. Low ceiling. Your head brushes the roots. There's a cashier, canned food, rusted tools, even a water jug with algae floating inside. And in the corner, a wooden crate. You pry it open. It's full of papers. Maps, old diaries, propaganda leaflets. You recognize some of the slogans: Yankee Go Home, Our Land, Our People. But there's something else. Hand-drawn diagrams of trap layouts. One even shows a triple-layered ventilation system with backflow traps to prevent gas attacks. Historians still argue whether the VC engineered these tunnel systems with long-term occupation in mind or simply built as they ran. Looking at this, someone planned ahead. You take photos, fold up a few maps for analysis. Then McCready whistles low. He's found the source of the scratching. Dead bodies. 2 of them. Viet Cong young. Maybe 16, 17. Their skin's paper thin, almost mummified. They've been here a while. This scratching was one of their arms, barely held together by tendons, slowly slipping down the wall under gravity. Richie turns green. You give him a second, then press forward. You find another branch leading deeper. Air's thinner now. Your breath echoes in a weird, hollow way. You check the barometer clipped to your chest. Pressure's dropping fast. That means either an exit nearby or a vacuum pocket. You go in anyway. The passage ends in a strange chamber, not built like the others. The walls are lined with bricks in a tunnel. You run your fingers across one. Fired clay, hand-molded. Old. Too old for the war. French. McCready guesses. You nod. Could be. The Viet Minh used older tunnels built during the colonial days, expanding them during the war with the Americans. But this one? It's too deep, too reinforced. There's even an altar in one corner. Burnt incense sticks, long dead. Ancestral maybe. You feel like you've walked into someone's sacred space. You don't linger. Back above ground, Richie pukes in the bushes. You hand him your canteen and say nothing. He's shaken, but he needed it. Better now than during a hot crawl. Later, at camp, you spread the maps on the table. The XO comes by, nods approvingly, and says, "Keep at it." That's it. That's the thanks. No medal, no speech. Just keep at it. You don't mind. You mark the chamber with the brick walls on your own map. You label it Room 27, Ancestor Hall. Part joke, part respect. It's what you do now. Leave breadcrumbs in the dark. Quirky fact of the day. Some tunnel rats carried pet mongooses into tunnels to detect snakes. One guy swore his saved him from cobra bite. The mongoose's name? Steve. Mainstream fact. The tunnel systems had booby-trapped air vents. They look like termite mounds above ground, but could be rigged to release poison gas if tampered with. You never looked at termite hills the same after learning that. The sun sets, and your fingers are still stained red with the clay from that chamber. And you wonder, how many other forgotten places are buried beneath your feet? How many stories never got told? And how long before someone adds your name to that list? You're starting to know the clay here like it's your mother tongue. Every shade of red, every grain of grit, every scent that rides the humid breath of the jungle. You know the difference between a tunnel that's breathing back at you and one that's holding its breath. And this morning, you get one the latter. No briefing, no orders, just a note left on your gear. Recheck Grid 9B. Locals spotted fresh smoke. You lace up, chew on a stale biscuit, and slide into the Jeep before the engine's even warm. Grid 9B is near an old banana grove. Half-collapsed trees and patches of stalks blackened by napalm weeks ago. You remember this place. It was quiet last time. Too quiet. And now someone says smoke is coming from the ground? That can only mean one thing. They're cooking down there again. And that means the tunnels aren't just abandoned relics anymore. They're alive. MacCready joins you, of course. He never says no. He just raises his eyebrows like a man who keeps betting on a slot machine that only pays out anxiety. Richie's not coming today. Word is he's in the infirmary with jungle stomach, a polite way of saying he discovered why you never trust the river water, even if it looks clear. You park under a shattered palm and start looking for signs. Freshly moved soil, displaced vegetation, footprints too light for boots. Eventually, you find it. A mound, no larger than a dinner plate, puffing faint wisps of gray like it's trying not to be noticed. You tap MacCready and nod. He exhales. They're down there, cooking again. That means recent traffic. That means active resistance. That means it's not going to be a quiet crawl. You slip into the ground again. This tunnel breathes hot. The air presses against your face like the inside of a boiler room. And that smell, burnt rice and lard. You know it. You've smelled it in too many chambers. You move forward, every inch loud in your head, even though your body's silent. You've learned to roll your heels, keep your hips flat, shift your elbows one by one. It's a dance nobody wants to learn. But here you are, a world-class soloist in a performance for no audience. The first chamber's small, just a cook site. You find ashes still warm, a battered pot, and a bamboo rack holding a strip of dried fish. You pocket it for analysis, but your stomach reminds you it's been hours since breakfast. MacCready leans in. This tunnel wasn't here last time. You nod. Freshly dug. The edges of the walls are still crumbling slightly. Loose soil. You run your fingers along a groove in the floor. Not a natural dip, something dragged. You follow it. The next turn is narrow, sharper than usual. You inch through sideways, practically hugging the wall. It opens into a broader shaft, arched, reinforced with old door frames. Some even still have rusty hinges clinging to them. You have no idea where they scavenged these, but someone's been working overtime. That's when you hear the voice. Muffled. Vietnamese. 2, maybe 3 speakers. Close. You freeze. Lights off. You and MacCready press against the wall, breathing like lizards, shallow and slow. The voices pass overhead. A hatch, maybe a false ceiling. You shine your light upward. Soft, low beam. There it is. A bamboo cover. Not sealed, just balanced. You trace the edge with your fingers. MacCready whispers, "You want to go up?" You shake your head. Not yet. Instead, you mark the location. Quietly. No need to engage. Not today. This mission's recon, not fireworks. You slide deeper into the earth. And that's when the tunnel changes. Suddenly it drops. Not much, just a few inches, but enough to tell you something's off. The clay darkens, almost gray. You reach up and your hand brushes brick. Again. This one, though, older, cracked, worn down by time, not war. You kneel and run your flashlight along the walls. There's writing, carved into the mortar. Vietnamese, yes, but some of it's French. Names, phrases, dated 1948. One even earlier, 1932. You blink. That's before the Japanese occupation. Before everything. Historians still argue whether these pre-war tunnels were intended for escape, storage, or secret religious practice. But one thing's for sure, they weren't meant for people like you. You read a few aloud. Michel n'est pas revenu. Michel didn't return. Charming. MacCready finds a crate buried in the wall, hidden behind loose bricks. Inside are rusted tools, half-melted candles, and a photograph. Faded, yellow, almost gone. A woman in a long-out dye, holding a child, smiling. You stare at it longer than you should, because it reminds you this place wasn't always a battlefield. It was once a home. Eventually, you find a turnback point. A chamber too tight, collapsed on one end, too risky to dig through without backup. You mark it and begin to crawl back. When you emerge, blinking into the daylight, everything looks different. The sun's in the same spot. The birds are still shrieking in the distance. But the world feels heavier, like you just walked through a ghost memory. Quirky tidbit of the day. Some tunnel rats believed chewing gum kept their ears from popping during pressure changes underground. Others said it helped with claustrophobia. Personally, you just like having something to chew besides your own tongue. Mainstream fact. Many of the CUC tunnels near Saigon had working theaters, hospitals, and even printing presses. The VC weren't just hiding, they were living down there. It wasn't just warfare. It was infrastructure. Back at camp, you scribble notes, update your maps, log the photos. The XO glances over your shoulder, then claps your back like you just installed a new fuse box. You don't bother mentioning the voices or the photograph. Some things belong to the tunnel. That night, under your mosquito net, you hold the photo one last time. You don't know who she was, or what happened to her, or if anyone remembers her name. But now, you do. You wake to rain pounding the canvas above you. Not the polite kind of drizzle that settles nerves. No, this is the kind of tropical hammering that drowns out thought. A relentless wall of water, smacking jungle and tint with the kind of force that makes even the bravest platoon dog curl up and pretend he's invisible. The camp is ankle deep in mud. Socks are a memory. Dry boots? A fantasy. You slosh toward the mess tent, dodging puddles that are trying to evolve into lakes. No one's smiling. Even McCready looks like someone stole his last pack of smokes. Rain check on tunneling? You ask with hopeful sarcasm. The XO grunts. Nope. You got a water infiltration report. Get ready. You sigh. Because of course water doesn't just make things miserable. It makes tunnels unstable, which makes you the guy who gets to crawl into them and see which ones are about to collapse and kill somebody. You gear up slowly, reluctantly. Even the tape on your boots feels sullen. You slather yourself in repellent that smells like burnt lemons and hope the leeches are feeling generous today. Rain aside, today's target is in the hills. Not far, just far enough to ruin your morning. You head out with McCready and, to your surprise, Richie, finally back from his intestinal misadventure. He looks pale, a little thinner, but more serious now. The kind of seriousness that says he's seen some things and flushed the rest. He doesn't talk much on a hike. You reach the entrance by mid-morning. It's disguised beneath a thatched lean-to, partially washed away. Mud has begun to slough off the slope, revealing the mouth of a tunnel that probably wasn't supposed to be found so soon. You crouch beside it and sniff the air, musty, warm, but not sulfurous. Good. That means no exposed waste pit this time. You go in first. Always. The clay here is soft, too soft. Each elbow press squishes into the wall like you're crawling through chocolate cake. You wince. This stuff is treacherous. Just a shift in water table, and it could bury you alive. About 6 meters in, you hit the first sag. The roof is bowing, held up by a single support beam, a bamboo pole that's begun to rot from the base. You don't touch it. You don't even breathe too loud near it. You motion for McCready to wait while you scout ahead. The tunnel curves, drops slightly, then opens into a chamber. It's flooded, a shallow pool, no more than ankle deep, but cold and still and unnervingly reflective. You don't see the bottom. You edge along the wall, trying not to disturb the water. One misstep, and you might plunge into something far deeper than expected. Your light catches something floating. It's a sandal. Just one. You glance at McCready, who's hanging back. Richie's behind him, breathing shallow. Don't move fast, you whisper. This whole place is soup. Richie nods. He doesn't look thrilled. You press on. The next passage narrows again. Why do they always narrow again? And then you find a second chamber. It's a weapons cache. Or rather was. Water's got most of it. AK parts rusted solid. Grenades looking bloated and unstable. You don't touch those. Nobody wants to be remembered as the guy who blew up because he poked a wet pineapple. Still, there's one thing that catches your eye. A handwritten inventory laminated in a plastic folder. Organized, almost bureaucratic. Someone had a system. Historians still argue whether the meticulous record-keeping found in many tunnel caches indicates centralized command from the north or simply disciplined local cells. You take a photo, gently, then the tunnel trembles. Just a little. A soft thud. Then another. You freeze. It's not footsteps. It's not artillery. It's rain. Above you. The water's starting to penetrate the upper layers of soil. You know that sound. Soft drips turning into groaning rivulets. The weight of it pressing down. You gesture sharply. Time to leave. You backtrack slowly, hands brushing the walls, eyes on the ceiling. The bamboo pole is bending more now. McCready sees it too. You all make it out, barely, scrambling up into the open just as the roof gives way behind you. The entrance collapses with a wet roar, like the earth sighing after a long breath. You sit there, panting, covered in clay and sweat, and probably a few choice curses you mutter under your breath. Richie doesn't speak. He just stares at the mud where the tunnel used to be. Yeah, you say to no one in particular. That's what happens when you poke a dragon during monsoon season. Back at camp, you file the report. Tunnel 7B, compromised. Possible alternate access deeper on ridge. The XO reads it, grunts, and tosses it on a growing pile. No fanfare. No thanks. Just a passing comment. Good work. Next. Mainstream historical fact. Some tunnel complexes were 3 levels deep and had multiple emergency exits spaced as far as a mile apart. That's not just escape planning. That's full-blown engineering. Weird little trivia? Some rats carried condoms in their kit. Not for what you'd think, but to keep their weapons dry. A condom over the barrel could mean the difference between click and boom. You spend the rest of the day scrubbing mud out of your gear, your hair, your ears. Richie finally pipes up over dinner. Do you ever get used to it? He asks. You chew, then shrug. You get used to not getting used to it. He doesn't laugh. Smart kid. That night, the rain doesn't stop. It just changes tempo. Slower now, more like a lullaby played on a million jungle leaves. You lie awake, listening, not to the storm, but to the silence beneath it. The tunnels are quiet tonight, sealed off, waiting. Like the earth is resetting the pieces for the next round. You close your eyes, but even in sleep, you're crawling. You're dreaming of a hallway. Not a tunnel, an actual hallway. Fluorescent lights above, polished linoleum underfoot, the sterile hum of bureaucracy. It's the VA back home, or maybe a high school. You're not sure, but in the dream, you keep reaching for something. Gear, a rifle, a flashlight, and it's never there. Then someone says your name. Only it isn't your name anymore. It's your call sign, Mole. That's how you wake up, to the sound of someone whispering it through the tent flap. Mole, you up. It's still dark, barely past 0400. The jungle's doing its half-sleep chirping, and the rain has died down to a misty drizzle that hisses gently against canvas. You sit up, half-laced boots on before your brain catches up. New orders. Fast ones. There's been a firefight near Hill 13. A VC unit vanished after engaging one of your patrols. An aerial recon shows what looks like a possible tunnel entry, hidden under a false boulder. Your team's going to trace it before they can relocate. No hot breakfast today. Just a packet of instant coffee you chew like jerky and a swig of canteen water that tastes faintly of iodine and aluminum. McCready's already geared up. Richie, too, looking better, even cracking a faint joke. You ever notice how this place smells like old meatloaf and fear? You chuckle. Not bad. The hike to Hill 13 is steep and slick, winding through vines and root systems that seem determined to trip you every 5 steps. You reach the site just as first light paints the treetops in gold. A narrow opening beneath a boulder, exactly where the recon said. You crouch and breathe deep. This one smells burnt. Not fresh fire burnt. Charred wood, maybe? You flick your light into the entrance and it catches on soot. Black walls. Someone torched this tunnel. Or tried to. You slide in. The first few meters are scorched. Not just soot, bamboo beams turn to ash. You brush a section and it flakes like paper. Whoever was down here wanted to erase something. But deeper in, the charring stops. Moisture must have slowed the spread. You crawl past the fire line and into cool earth again. McCready mutters behind you. Hope they weren't trying to cook dinner. The air thickens. Then the smell hits you. It's not rot. It's chemicals. Something sharp, metallic, with a weird sweetness. You signal halt, pull out your rag mask. You've encountered gas before. Homemade stuff. Sometimes it's just smoke from dried peppers and chili powder, meant to blind and choke. Sometimes it's worse. You press forward cautiously, flashlight low. That's when you find the door. Yes, a door. Wooden, reinforced with metal brackets. Hung cleanly in a frame. It's ajar. You glance back at McCready. Ever seen one like this? You whisper. He shakes his head. Nope. Let's not knock. You ease it open. Inside is, well, it's an office. Sort of. 2 stools. A table. A radio set, busted now, wires cut. Shelves on the wall with files, maps, even a small clock still ticking. You shine your light across the floor. Footprints. Fresh ones. Barefoot. Adult-sized, leading to a trapdoor in the corner. Not even trying to hide it. You kneel and listen. Nothing. You open it. A ladder descends into pitch black. You sigh. Of course it does. You clip your light to your vest. Test the first few rungs. Solid. The clay gives way to stone here. Paved. Maybe even tiled in some areas. You descend into what feels less like a tunnel and more like a vault. Below, the air is cool. Cold, even. You breathe shallow and listen. Water drips somewhere. A low, rhythmic echo. And then a hum. Electrical. Your heart rate jumps. You follow the tunnel. Now squared, lined with bricks, probably French colonial or earlier. This place wasn't dug in the last year. It's old, maybe repurposed. You pass a chamber with what looks like a battery bank. Rusty, corroded, but once functional. How they charged it? You don't know. Maybe a bicycle generator. Maybe sorcery. You're not ruling anything out anymore. And then you reach the room. A library. Or an archive. Really. Bamboo shelves stacked with papers, books, oilcloth bundles tied in twine. A desk with an open ledger. You sweep the beam of your light over the pages. Medical notes. One entry reads, Patient 4, exposure to Agent Blue. Symptoms include... You stop reading. This isn't just an archive. It's a record of suffering. Of chemicals, experiments, survival strategies. How to counteract foreign substances. How to treat blindness. How to dig latrines when your village's water is poisoned. Historians still argue whether these hidden rooms served primarily as intelligence nodes, medical facilities, or psychological warfare outposts. You take photos. Lots of them. McCready breaks the silence. This place gives me the creeps. You nod. It's too clean. Indeed, there's no dust. No cobwebs. Someone's been here recently. But there's no sign of them now. You find a crude map on the wall, drawn in charcoal, with branching lines and code numbers. It might be the entire sector's underground layout, or it might be a prank. Still, you photograph it. Then you hear it. A pop. From above. Not a gunshot, more like a cough. Then another. Louder. You grab McCready and Richie, motioning up the ladder. Time to go. Fast. You climb, ears straining for sounds of pursuit. None come. Outside, the air is brighter, hotter. You emerge into daylight and realize you've been down there for hours. Then you see it. Smoke. Thick and gray. Rising from the trees to the west. Not you. Someone else is torching a tunnel. A message? Maybe. You radio it in. Command says they'll investigate. You doubt it. You make your way back to base, legs aching. Back in your bunk. You sit with your knees up, staring at the wall. Not because you're afraid. Because today felt different. You weren't just crawling through the enemy's hideout. You were crawling through their mind. Quirky tidbit of the day. Some tunnel rats swore by eating onions before crawling. They claimed it helped them smell the traps. Yeah, no word on whether it actually worked or it just made you less popular in the mess tent. Mainstream fact, during the war, the U.S. developed special tunnel exploration kits, including handguns with silencers, chemical sniffers, and even tiny periscopes. They were meant to give you an edge. But in the dark, it's never the tools that save you. It's your instincts. And yours are sharpening like fangs. You wake to the buzz of a makeshift alarm. A tin can rig to a tripwire somewhere near the perimeter. It clangs with an ungainly, off-key chime that only makes you want to curse softly and roll back over. But you don't. There's work to do. Today is a snipe and clear mission. Your team's been tasked to locate and neutralize a sniper nest reported on a ridge overlooking a key supply route, which means you're heading uphill like usual and crawling into more tunnels because, of course, the sniper isn't just hanging out in the open. You trudge out of camp before dawn, the jungle fog clinging to your skin like a damp blanket. Even the usual cacophony of bird calls and insects feels muted, as if the forest itself is holding its breath. The path is narrow and slick. You slip twice before finding your footing. McCready stays close, grumbling about how the jungle's turned into a giant slip and slide. When you reach the ridge, you survey the area. The sniper's mark is clear, a nest of bamboo huts, camouflaged with palm fronds and dirt. But nothing human-sized stands out. You crouch and scope the area with your binoculars, eyes sharp. That's when you spot it, a tiny hole near the base of a tree, no bigger than a rabbit's burrow, cleverly concealed by leaves and moss. Tunnel in trance, you whisper. You gear up, signaling McCready and Richie to follow. Inside, it's damp and claustrophobic, but you've been here enough to feel at home. The air is thick with dust and the faint smell of diesel fumes. Someone's been here recently. Your light catches a glint. Rifle scopes, spent cartridges, and crudely made booby traps rigged to tripwires. You pause, careful to avoid triggering any. The tunnel branches out, and you take the left path, moving silently, heart pounding. You hear a faint clicking, mechanical, deliberate. You freeze. A tripwire. You hold your breath and carefully reach down, disarming a rusted but still deadly-looking explosive. McCready gives you a thumbs up. You move forward until the tunnel opens into a small chamber. There, crouched in the shadows, is a figure. Not more than a boy. Barefoot, eyes wide, clutching a sniper rifle almost too big for him. You hold your breath. The kid looks up, startled, then, almost imperceptibly, nods. You nod back. No shots fired. You radio in for extraction. Historians still argue whether many young snipers were coerced into service or volunteered to defend their homes. You whisper to yourself, eyes never leaving the kid. Quirky detail. Some tunnel rats claim that chewing beetle nut helped keep nerves steady during tense moments underground. Problem was, the red-stained spit made camouflage tricky. Mainstream fact. Tunnel rats often carried tiny flashlights and .45 caliber pistols because the weapons balanced firepower with maneuverability in tight spaces. You watch as the kid is pulled out, expression a mix of fear and relief. As you climb back to daylight, you wonder how many more like him are still down there. Back at camp, the rain starts again, soft this time, like a lullaby. You sit alone, chewing on that same bitter coffee, thinking about the jungle, the tunnels, and the people caught inside them. You take a deep breath and prepare to crawl once more. You wake to the sharp scent of gunpowder and something sweeter, frangipani, maybe, or the ghost of a flower crushed days ago under jungle boots. It's one of those mornings where the air feels heavy, like the forest is holding a secret and waiting for you to catch on. Your orders come quick and quiet. A tunnel system near a village has reportedly been used as a hospital. Casualties, both VC and civilians, have been seen carried in and out under cover of night. The brass wants confirmation, and that means crawling in where no one else dares. You grab your gear, nod to McCready, and slip into the thick brush. The village is silent when you arrive, more a scattering of huts than a proper town. The locals avoid eye contact. You sense the weight of unspoken stories. The entrance is hidden beneath a pile of palm fronds and dirt. You brush them aside and descend. Inside, The air is cooler, tinged with antiseptic and something coppery, the unmistakable scent of blood. You crawl slowly, senses heightened. The tunnel walls here are lined with cloth and bamboo partitions, small alcoves fashioned into makeshift wards. You glimpse old bandages, emptied syringes, and crude surgical tools. The quiet is almost sacred, broken only by muffled whispers and distant coughs. You move deeper, heart steadying as you come across a small group of wounded men, their faces pale but alive. One catches your eye, a young soldier with a shattered arm, eyes burning with pain, but also a strange calm. He nods faintly at you, a silent acknowledgement. You take inventory, noting medicines and supplies, some from local herbs, others from captured or smuggled American stock. The place is a lifeline, but it's vulnerable. You sense it could be lost with one careless step. You leave quietly, marking the coordinates for command. Outside, the sun is high, dappling the jungle floor with flickering light. You wipe sweat from your brow and realize how thirsty you are. As you make your way back, McCready jokes, "You think they'd let us set up a hospital tent that nice?" You smile, but the image feels distant. Historians still argue whether these underground hospitals were mostly for propaganda or truly effective in saving lives. Quirky fact: some medics reportedly used crocodile dung as a primitive sunscreen, claiming it blocked infection and UV rays. Whether that was science or superstition remains up for debate. Mainstream fact: the Viet Cong were known for their complex tunnel hospital systems, often complete with ventilation, water supplies, and concealed exits. Back at camp, you write your report, feeling the weight of lives you'll never meet but somehow carry with you. You lie down, letting the jungle sounds wash over you, a quiet symphony of survival and silence. The jungle holds its breath as you rise with the first gray light, the air cool and wet like the inside of a soaked towel. Everything slick, your boots, your gear, even your bones. You dreamt of tunnels again, not crawling through them, but standing outside, unable to move, just watching as other soldiers disappeared into the earth. Maybe that's the universe giving you a moment's warning. Today's mission isn't like the others. You're going deep. An intel report from a captured courier points to something big, a command tunnel. Maybe even a regional headquarters, buried under a ridge near the Songbi River. The tunnel's not just for hiding. It's for controlling. You eat quickly, if you can call it that. A few spoonfuls of canned meat and a square of stale chocolate. Richie offers a sardonic bon appetit, and McCready mutters something about opening a French bistro after the war, but it's all nerves. You gear up heavier today. Backup flashlight, spare batteries, extra water, bandages, 2 backup knives, a small coil of wire, and something new, an experimental gas detector on loan from the engineers. You're not sure it works, but the blinking green light is oddly reassuring. You cross the river at dawn, boots squelching through the soft mud. The jungle on this side is thicker, older. The trees rise tall and silent, branches so tightly woven they block out the sky. Birds quiet. Even the insects seem subdued, like they know what waits beneath their roots. You find the entrance beneath a rock ledge, a perfect circle cut into the slope, hidden by brush and a curtain of vines. The edges are unusually smooth. This wasn't dug in a hurry. You crouch, draw your sidearm, and slide in. The tunnel is wide. Not by much, maybe 4 feet across, but enough that you can crouch walk instead of crawl. Luxury by tunnel rat standards. The walls are reinforced with bamboo and even concrete in some places. The floor is packed clay, worn smooth. Someone spent a lot of time down here. You flick on your light and start forward. Behind you, McCready whispers, "If we don't come back, I'm haunting the CO who sent us." Richie chimes in, "You'll have to get in line." The first chamber you hit is empty. Just a holding area, probably used as a temporary post. A few crates stacked in the corner, labeled in Chinese. You open one. Dried rice, medical gauze, iodine. Another crate has spare boots and oilcloths. Whoever built this place expected to stay. You push deeper. The air cools noticeably, and your flashlight beam starts to catch the shimmer of condensation on the walls. You pause at an intersection, 3 tunnels branching out like veins. You pick the center one, marking the walls with chalk as you go. You remember a story someone told you back at base about a tunnel rat who'd gone too deep, gotten lost, and kept circling back to the same room for hours, only to discover it was a decoy, a trap meant to confuse and isolate. You hope this isn't that kind of tunnel. About 20 meters in, you feel the floor give slightly beneath your step. A trap. You freeze. Not the kind that goes boom. This is a pressure plate, but it's connected to something metallic underfoot. McCready leans in. Claymore. No, you murmur. Too subtle. Maybe gas. You step back slowly and sweep your light toward the side wall, where a faint notch reveals a hidden compartment. A cylinder. Pressurized. Probably filled with tear gas, or worse. You disarm the trigger and mark the spot, just in case someone else follows. Further in, the walls widen again into what looks like a communications room. This is where it gets interesting. There are phones, wired, old Soviet models, and maps pinned to the walls, drawn in pencil and charcoal. You recognize a few of the regions marked. Phuc Long, Tay Ninh, even Saigon. Lines of movement, supply chains, strike routes. This is no outpost. This is strategy. You take photos. Richie pockets a few documents for analysis. You press deeper, and then you find it. A door. Actual metal, bolted and sealed. Heavy. Who builds a door underground? McCready whispers. You grin. People with something to hide. It takes 10 minutes of careful probing before you find a release. A lever disguised as a pipe. You pull gently, and the bolts retract with a metallic groan. Beyond it, something you've never seen. A war room. Circular. Maybe 20 feet wide. The ceiling reinforced with steel sheets. Lights, actual electric lights, flicker from batteries wired through a patchwork of cables. In the center, a raised platform with a board showing unit placements, attack zones, even American positions from weeks prior. You're standing in the brain of a local VC cell. Maybe more than local. Historians still argue whether sites like this were actually used for field command or were elaborate diversions meant to distract U.S. forces from mobile leadership hiding elsewhere. But this place, it feels real and lived in. You spot cigarette butts, a still warm cup of tea, someone left in a hurry, or maybe someone's still here. That's when the lights go out. Instant darkness. You drop into a crouch, weapon drawn, listening. Nothing. Then, a soft shuffle behind you. You spin and fire. Flashlight on. A wall. Nothing but a wall. False alarm. McCready whispers, but his voice is tight. Keep moving, you mutter. You backtrack out of the war room and take the left-hand tunnel at the last fork, hoping it loops back toward the surface. It does not. Instead, it slopes downward, and then you smell it. Oil, rust, burning metal. You round a corner and find a generator room. A bicycle rig, exactly as rumored, used to power the lights, fans, and comms. Ingenious, even inspiring in a dark way. Quirky tidbit. It said that some tunnel systems included fake walls that, when pushed, led to underwater passageways, the escape method of choice for commanders. Few Americans ever saw one, and fewer believe they existed. But in a place like this, anything seems possible. Mainstream fact, entire underground villages existed, complete with classrooms, kitchens, forges, and even theaters. They weren't just survival bunkers. They were homes. You loop back, marking paths as you go. Finally, you find a new tunnel that rises. The air becomes drier. Your head begins to ache from the carbon dioxide, and you know your oxygen's running low. Then daylight. A thin crack at the ceiling. A hatch. You push it open with everything you've got and emerge in the middle of the thicket. Behind you, McCready and Richie drag themselves out, gulping air like it's the best thing they've ever tasted. You're covered in clay and sweat, eyes bloodshot but alive. And you have the intel, the war room, the maps, the generator, all of it. You radio for pickup, and within an hour, a chopper's slicing the sky above you, lifting you out of the jungle like a hand plucking a thorn. Back at base, you stagger into the debriefing tent, still half blinded by sunlight. The officer listens, wide-eyed, as you describe the underground war room. He tells you that higher command wants detail maps, possibly a return expedition. You're not thrilled about that part. But for now, you strip off your gear, hit the showers, and collapse into your bunk with the fan on full blast. Richie's already asleep, snoring like a buzzsaw. McCready mutters, "Next time they want a tour guide for hell, I'm charging extra." You laugh, then lie still, letting your mind drift, wondering what it's like to live underground, not just as a tactic, but as a way of life. What it's like to fight a war from the shadows and win. And whether, in a different life, you might have been the one waiting behind that door, flashlight off, listening for footsteps in the dark. The base smells like diesel and damp canvas when you wake, comforting in a weird way. After a mission like yesterday's, anything above ground feels like a luxury suite. You stretch, bones creaking, and rub your eyes as light seeps through the tent flap. Richie is still passed out, face down with one boot on and the other missing. McCready's up already, tinkering with a broken radio, muttering like it insulted his mother. Today's mission isn't a deep crawl, it's something stranger. There have been whispers about a tunnel system with inhabited sectors, not occupied by soldiers. Civilians. Apparently, somewhere near the Cambodian border, there's a vast underground complex that villagers are using, not for combat, but to live. Families, grandparents, children. It's not unheard of. Some regions turn to tunnel life as the only way to avoid bombing campaigns. But few Americans have seen it. Fewer still were allowed in. So when the brass ears at a local elder might be willing to negotiate a tour, no guns, no threats, just observation, they send you. Because, well, who better to play uninvited house guest than the guy who spent more time underground than a root? You head out mid-morning under a thick haze of clouds. The jungle is quieter than usual, just the buzz of insects and the distant thump of rotor blades. Your guide is a wiry ARVN scout named Ben, who smells faintly of mint and wood smoke. He says little, just moves like he's walked this path 1,000 times blindfolded. After hours of trudging through thick brush and dodging low branches, you reach a slope dotted with what look like termite mounds. But they're not. They're vent shafts. You've arrived. Ben whistles softly. A minute passes. Then two. Then movement. A panel of ground shifts, and a face peers out. An old man, eyes sharp, clothes simple. He says something to Ben in rapid Vietnamese. Ben replies. After some back and forth, the elder nods and gestures you in. You crouch and follow. Inside, the tunnel opens not into darkness, but into light. Dim, yes, but illuminated by lanterns, candles, and tiny electric bulbs strung from car batteries. The passageway is wider than usual, reinforced with wood and sandbags. The air is warmer, filled with the scent of cooking rice and boiled herbs. And then you hear it, the soft murmur of voices. Children laughing, a woman humming. You turn a corner and stop. Before you, carved into the belly of the earth, is an entire neighborhood. Tiny rooms line the walls, dug with care and precision. Families sit cross-legged around small stoves. Chickens cluck in a pen made of woven roots. A man repairs a sandal using melted tire rubber. You're stunned. This isn't a military post. It's a community. You lower your weapon instinctively. A woman offers you tea in a tin cup, her eyes wary but not hostile. You nod, take a sip. It's hot, bitter, and somehow grounding. Ben explains that many families fled into the tunnels during the bombing of their villages. With nowhere else to go, they built downward. It took years and countless risks. But now they live here, quietly beneath the war. Historians still argue whether tunnel complexes like this were peaceful sanctuaries or camouflage for hidden fighters. The truth? It's probably both. Dual purpose was the name of the game out here. You walk deeper with the elder as your guide. He shows you a classroom, children practicing handwriting with sticks on slate, a small infirmary lined with mats and jars of dried herbs, a kitchen smoky with the scent of garlic and fermented fish, then a grave, just a shallow depression in the wall, marked with incense and a photo. You bow your head. It's quiet for a while after that. You begin to understand why this place was so well hidden. It's not just about survival. It's about dignity, about preserving a thread of normal life in the middle of madness. The elder pauses at a door covered with cloth. You duck inside. It's their temple, a simple room, a statue of Buddha, a small altar, a candle burning low. You kneel beside the elder and say nothing. You don't need to. Eventually, Ben taps your shoulder. Time to go. You retrace your steps, the soft sounds of life fading behind you like a dream you're waking from too early. Outside, the jungle feels different. Brighter, louder, angrier. You hike back in silence, Ben trailing behind. Back at base, your CO reads your report and raises an eyebrow. You're sure this wasn't a trap? No fighters? No ambush? You shake your head. Just people. Living. He grunts. Doesn't change much. But interesting. That night, you lie in your bunk, staring at the canvas above you, thinking about the little girl who handed you a carved wooden toy with shy eyes. You still have it. In your pocket. You roll it between your fingers, listening to the jungle breathe. Quirky fact. Some families in the tunnels raised pigs underground, feeding them scraps and training them to stay quiet. They believed the pigs absorbed bad luck and protected their children from illness. A strange mix of science and superstition, but then again, you've seen stranger. Mainstream historical fact. The Siuchi tunnels and others like them supported entire underground populations, with living quarters, medical stations, and even underground wells to provide fresh water during blockades or sieges. Your final thoughts before sleep are simple and strange. You've seen war, but today you saw life. Hidden, fragile, unarmed, and that might have been the most dangerous thing of all. You wake to the sound of boots on gravel and a chopper lifting off in the distance, slicing through the dawn with that gut-deep whump 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 that makes your ribs vibrate. There's a dull ache in your knees from yesterday's hike, and your right shoulder twinges, probably from crawling wrong through one of those slanted tunnels. You sit up slowly, still turning over the memories of the underground village. The taste of tea, the smell of warm rice, the tiny carved toy now sitting on the edge of your cot. You hadn't planned to keep it, but you also couldn't put it down. Today's briefing changes everything. You're going back underground, but this time with a flamethrower. Not for civilians. Not for scouting. This one's a hunter-killer op. A confirmed VC weapons cache was spotted by drone and backed up by intel from a local defector. And it's not a simple side tunnel either. This one's supposed to be a whole hidden munitions factory. They've even got air vents cleverly disguised as termite nests, hidden in a ravine choked with vines. It's an open secret, apparently, that VC engineers have become masters of concealment, often building decoy shafts while sealing real ones with soil that looked freshly disturbed but was reinforced underneath with logs and stone. You gear up with a tight stomach. There's no room for the gentleness of yesterday. Today's crawl is strictly war. You're issued a smaller flamethrower unit, portable, about 25 pounds, still enough to make you feel like you're wearing a second backpack made of gasoline. You get a gas mask, too, a new one. Your CO doesn't say why, and you don't ask. You just remember the time Richie had to scrub black soot off his tongue for 3 days after a misfire underground. You fly in with a team of 5, 3 tunnel rats, 1 engineer, and 1 security. They drop you off in a clearing where even the trees look nervous. The air buzzes with heat and tension. No birds, no chatter, just the sound of boots pressing into the loam and the distant grumble of thunder. You joke that it's probably monsoon season's way of giving you background music. McCready rolls his eyes, but smirks. You find the main shaft hidden beneath a pile of palm leaves, tucked into a narrow split in the hillside. The entry hole is barely wide enough for a grown man to slide through sideways, and it smells like oil and wet copper. You go first, because of course you do. The flamethrower's weight shifts awkwardly on your back as you squeeze through, your flashlight sweeping across the tunnel walls. You move slowly, deliberately, try not to scuff your boots too hard against the clay. A false step could mean a tripwire, or worse, a pressure plate linked to a grenade or chemical agent. The first stretch is uneventful. Just old footprints, recent tool marks in the soil, and a faint smell of sulfur. But 20 meters in, you find what you're looking for. A fork with one branch sloping down sharply. Too steep to be casual. Someone dug that on purpose. You mark the wall, take the left path. The air thickens as you descend. You switch on your mask fan, feeling the flutter of filtered air against your cheeks. Your flashlight flickers once, then steadies, catching the glint of something metallic embedded in the dirt wall. Shrapnel. Old, rusted, maybe from a bomb that hit the surface years ago. You wonder if this tunnel predates the current war. A lot of them do. Some are first carved out during the French occupation in the 1940s, then repurposed. Historians still argue whether the French knew just how deep and complex the Vietnamese underground networks were. But if they did, they certainly didn't say much. And then, boom, a thump echoes through the soil. Not close, but not far enough either. The engineer radios in. Cave-in triggered near vent 3. Might have been a rat tripwire. One of theirs. You freeze. That means someone's in here. Now, you flick off your flashlight and listen. Deep breath. The tunnel holds still. Then a rustle. A shift of gravel. Soft. You signal the others. Proceed with caution. The next chamber is lined with crates. Wood sealed with wax, marked with Chinese characters. You pop one open. Inside, AK-47s. Clean, oiled, and ready. Another crate reveals RPG shells wrapped in oilcloth. A factory indeed. Quirky tidbit. Rumors say that in some VC munitions tunnels, gunpowder was made from scavenged U.S. ammunition, disassembled, reprocessed, and repacked. Sort of like taking your enemy's bullets and turning them back around. Mainstream historical fact. Many of the Viet Cong's underground storage areas use trap vents, narrow escape shafts with clay lids that could be burst open in emergencies. These weren't just clever. They were crucial when the tunnels were bombed or filled with gas or fire. You mark the spot, take photographs, and plant demolition charges. But then, movement again. You freeze, flamethrower ready. A figure darts past a side shaft. Small, fast, probably a scout, possibly unarmed. You hold fire, because even with a flamethrower in your hands, your trigger finger knows hesitation. The enemy is not always monstrous. Sometimes it's a teenager with dirt on his face and terror in his eyes. And sometimes, just sometimes, that makes it worse. McCready covers your flank as you move deeper, breathing slow and shallow through the mask. The air's heating up, and the walls sweat right alongside you. Then you find the heart of it. A chamber easily 20 feet long, braced with timber. There's a forge, a real forge, crude but functioning. A pile of molten scrap cooling in a pan. A lathe cobbled from old car parts. Someone's been manufacturing replacement parts down here. Bolts, barrel pieces, trigger assemblies. You walk slowly, scanning. There, on the wall, a charcoal drawing. A tiger, stylized, its mouth open in a silent roar. You pause. Richie once told you that tigers were symbols of cunning and strength in Vietnamese culture, but also danger, the kind that hides in the brush, strikes only when it must. There's something poetic about it. You plant the final charges and radio for extraction. But as you turn to leave, something goes wrong. A noise, metal striking stone. The tunnel behind you collapses. Dust fills the air. Lights flicker. You spin, ready to torch, but it's just McCready, eyes wide. We're sealed. He chokes. Not entirely. There's a narrow side tunnel, unlit and wet. You've got no choice. You crawl for 20 minutes, maybe more, through a space no bigger than a coffin. Your flamethrower scrapes the ceiling. Mud coats your arms. And then air. Fresh. Cool. You claw your way into an old escape shaft, half collapsed, but navigable. And when you reach the top, sky. Real, glorious, gray sky. You burst out like a mole finally quitting the job, covered in clay and panting. McCready flops out after you like a sack of wet laundry. The others make it too. The charges go off minutes later. The ground shakes. Smoke pours from the hillside. Another tunnel gone. Another piece of the underground war erased. You stare at the rising column of smoke, unsure how to feel. You didn't see bodies, but you saw evidence of life, of purpose, of resistance. You wonder how many such places you'll have to burn before the jungle stops hiding them. That night, you don't eat much. You just sit on the steps of your tent, cleaning your gear in the dim light, thinking about the tiger on the wall. Cunning, strong, patient. You wonder how many more of them wait below, and whether one day they'll come above ground for good. You're learning to recognize the smell of freshly disturbed earth even in your sleep. By now, you can spot a new tunnel entrance by the feel of the dirt, the way it sinks slightly underfoot, just a few degrees softer than the ground around it. Today, that skill gets put to the test in the worst possible way, because today, the jungle swallows two of your own. It starts before dawn. A recon patrol goes dark somewhere near the Bencat region. Dense bamboo groves, known enemy activity, and a whole lot of silence when you try to raise them on the radio. Your CO's face tightens in the kind of way that says, "We already know they're gone, but we're sending you anyway." You're briefed before sunrise. The patrol was likely taken underground. No bodies, no gear left behind. Just footprints that stop at a patch of flattened brush. There's a soft depression near a tree trunk, barely visible. But to you, it's practically a billboard saying, VC tunnel here. So you pack light and dirty. Just your sidearm, a flashlight, a blade, and your breath held tight in your chest. You and Richie are the only two going in this time. McCready's out with a fever, some kind of jungle crud that's turned him into a walking faucet. He muttered something about ghosts in the pipes before puking on his boots. The entrance is small. You've crawled through mouse holes wider than this. The only reason you fit is because you twist sideways and remove your vest. The earth hugs your shoulders like a coffin's lining. You ease in slowly, inch by inch. You pass a tight corner, scraping your elbow on a stone. The tunnel smells strange, damp, yes, but laced with something else. Charcoal. Sweat, rusted metal. 10 feet in, you find a trap. Not the explosive kind. Worse, it's a pit. Just a narrow drop, hidden by a woven mat of roots and clay. You spot it a second before stepping in. Booby, you whisper. You flick a pebble into the hole. A clink, then silence. Bamboo spikes. You pull back and mark the spot with chalk. Richie mutters, "If they wanted us dead, they'd have just filled the air with gas." "Maybe they want us alive," you reply, and immediately regret it, because now your brain starts racing through the possibilities. A prison tunnel, an interrogation chamber, maybe even a honey trap designed to lure you deeper so they can map your tactics. Historians still argue whether the Viet Cong actively baited U.S. tunnel rats for information or simply took prisoners when the opportunity presented itself. The truth, like the tunnels, is murky and narrow. You move deeper. The tunnel forks twice. You take the left each time. It's a rule you and Richie made up after a drunk conversation about labyrinths and Greek myths. Always go left. Even if it's wrong, you'll be consistently wrong. It actually works more often than not. Eventually, you find something. Boot prints. Not yours. Fresh. The soil's still damp around the edges. Someone came through here no more than an hour ago. Probably carrying gear. Maybe dragging someone. You check the walls. There's faint fingernail marks in the clay. Desperate scrapes. Your stomach drops. Then comes the smell. Something metallic. Sharp. Blood. You push forward, faster now. The tunnel opens into a small chamber, a low-ceilinged space maybe 6 feet wide. At first, it's empty. Then your light catches it. A dog tag, half buried in the dirt. You scrape it out gently. It belongs to Davis, one of the missing recon boys. So you're close. There's a narrow slit in the far wall, barely big enough to crawl through. You squeeze in, heart hammering, and then you see him. Davis, alive, barely. He's curled in a corner, tied at the wrists, face bruised but conscious. When your flashlight hits him, he squints, then smiles. A tiny broken thing. Richie moves to cut the ropes, whispering something about angels and lucky breaks. But you freeze, because Davis is shaking his head. Slowly, eyes wide. Trap. The wall to your left shifts. Too late. 3VC burst in, fast and silent. What follows is 10 seconds of chaos. Close, brutal, breathless. You drop one with your sidearm, the report deafening in the confined space. Richie tackles another, blade flashing. The third dives at you, fist raised, but you pivot, slam your flashlight into his temple. Silence. Just the sound of your own heartbeat. Davis is breathing hard, nodding thanks. Richie's got a cut on his cheek, but otherwise intact. You don't wait around. You grab Davis and move fast, retracing your steps. The tunnel seems narrower now, angrier. You pass the spike pit, the fork, the scent of rust and sweat. Your lungs burn. Your knees scream, but finally light. You emerge into the jungle, dragging Davis behind you like a sack of bones. The LZ is 20 meters away. You call it in. 5 minutes later, a chopper kicks up a storm of leaves and grit, and you're airborne. Safe, but not clean. Back at base, Davis is rushed to the infirmary. He'll live, but he doesn't talk much. Just sits with wide eyes, mumbling something about the second guy. Your brow furrows. Second guy. You check the manifest again. 2 men were missing. Only Davis came out. So what happened to Miller? You confront Davis later, when the morphine's faded a bit. He won't look at you. They took him, he whispers. Said he'd make a better message. You nod, slowly, because you've seen what messages look like. Sometimes they're bodies hanging from trees. Sometimes they're tunnels that collapse behind you, with just a note carved into the dirt. We saw you. You can't sleep that night. Even a carved toy on your shelf doesn't help. The jungle outside seems louder than usual. Every rustle, every chirp, every shift of the wind sounds like breathing. You start to wonder how many of your own voices are still echoing through tunnels you'll never find again. Quirky fact, tunnel rats often carry condoms filled with air tied to tripwire strings. They'd toss them ahead in the dark. If the condom popped, it meant pressure or motion had disturbed it, signaling a trap. Crude but life-saving. Mainstream historical fact. By 1967, the U.S. had developed chemical sniffer devices designed to detect human presence underground. But in practice, they often malfunctioned in Vietnam's hot, humid air and were quickly abandoned in favor of human detection, namely you. You stare at the ceiling that night, counting each breath like it's a riddle you've almost solved. And when sleep finally comes, it's shallow. Tense, because tomorrow you'll crawl again, and you still don't know where Miller went. Morning brings no relief. The humidity hits you like wet cotton, and the jungle outside base camp seems to hiss under its own breath. You wake up to find your bunk damp with sweat, your mouth dry, and your nerves like frayed electrical wire humming against your ribs. The mission from yesterday still clings to you like jungle mold. Davis rescued, Miller vanished, and the vague promise of a better message left like a riddle from the underworld. You don't have time to process. Your CO slaps down a new file before you've even had coffee. New tunnel complex, new objectives, no time to grieve the missing. No ceremony, just coordinates, intel sheets, and a napkin-scrawled note. Be careful. They're adapting, and that's the problem. They're always adapting. You sit in the shade with Richie, going over the mission plan. It's a familiar ritual now. Unwrap a ration bar, nibble at the corner, and pretend it doesn't taste like compressed sawdust. You go through the aerial photos, the maps with pencil marks that might as well say here be dragons. There's a new twist this time. Intelligence suggests this tunnel complex was used not just for logistics, but for propaganda distribution. Leaflets, crude printing presses, even hidden radios. In other words, they're not just hiding down there, they're broadcasting, organizing, fueling the fire. Historians still argue whether the tunnels near Tay Ninh actually served as proto-media centers for the Viet Cong, or if this was just exaggerated Cold War paranoia. But from what you've seen, anything's possible under the jungle floor. The entrance is disguised beneath a false termite mound. You laugh when you see it. Not because it's funny, but because it's clever. Frustratingly clever. Just one of 100 things the VC have mastered about this terrain that you're still fumbling through. You go in alone this time. Richie's being rotated to a forward base for debriefs. He slaps your shoulder before you leave and says, "If you find a VC newsroom, bring me a souvenir." Like one of those communist staplers. Staplers? Yeah, man. Gotta be different from ours, right? Maybe red or something. He's joking, but barely. You slide into the earth. The tunnel breathes around you. Every time you do this, you swear it feels more alive. Like you're not entering a structure, but a creature. It's pitch black after the first 5 feet. Your flashlight cuts a narrow beam, catching roots, crawling insects, and old bits of cloth that might once have been uniforms. The air is heavier than usual, thick with the smell of mold and something chemical. You're no chemist, but you know what old ink smells like. It's here, somewhere. The tunnel slopes downward, not sharply but steadily. You count your steps, 40, 60, then 100 before it widens into a small alcove. There it is, a printing press, hand-operated, made from scavenged bicycle parts and wood. Ingenious, crude, utterly effective. Stacks of paper sit beside it. Leaflets printed in Vietnamese with slogans you can't read but recognize by form. Anti-American messaging. Drawings. A cartoon of a soldier with a rat's tail. You blink. They know. Of course they do. You're not just a whisper among your own ranks. You're part of their mythos too. The tunnel rats. The Americans who dare to crawl into hell. You're not a man anymore. You're propaganda. There's a small radio unit in the corner. It's powered off. You check out of habit. No traps, no tricks. You pull the battery pack anyway, just in case. That's when you hear it. A sound behind you. Not a scuffle. Not a breath. Click. The kind of click that screams tripwire. You freeze. Time slows. You don't move. You don't breathe. You follow the wire with your eyes. It's connected to a canister tucked into the dirt wall. Maybe gas, maybe worse. You don't risk it. You drop, flat, and start disarming. You've done this before. Twice successfully, once less so. Your right pinky still doesn't fully bend. You isolate the trigger, snip the wire, and ease the mechanism out with the slow care of someone dismantling a snake. It works. This time, you sit back, breathing hard, wiping your brow with a sleeve. And then you see the second wire. Too late. The chamber fills with gas. Your mask is clipped to your belt. Rookie mistake. You slap it on as quickly as possible, eyes already stinging. The gas isn't lethal, but it's irritating, blinding, disorienting. You fumble your way back out, half crawling, half hallucinating. You think you hear voices behind you, but that might just be your brain cooking from adrenaline. You make it out, coughing into the foliage. Back at base, a medic rinses your eyes and gives you a double dose of aspirin. Looks like tear gas, he says. They're experimenting. Great. Now you're a lab rat. You spend the evening writing a report. The printing press, the leaflets, the trap. The medic insists you get some sleep, but your mind's still tracing every wire, every loop of that mechanism, trying to guess how close you came. The next morning, another rat from a nearby unit swings by your tent. He's older, scarred down the side of his neck. Been in country longer than you. He looks over your gear, squints at your notes, then says, "They're not trying to kill you." You stare. Could have fooled me. No. If they wanted to kill you, you'd be dead. They're training you, testing you. Why? So you get confident. Then they spring the real trap. That night, your dreams are twisted. You're crawling through a tunnel that turns into a printing press, its gears grinding up bones. The leaflets it spits out have your face on them, but your eyes are hollow and your mouth is sewn shut. You wake up with your fists clenched so tight, your nails leave crescent moons in your palms. You spend the day in a radio tent, scanning frequencies. You find nothing but static and an old rock and roll broadcast leaking in from Saigon. Then, suddenly, Vietnamese. A woman's voice. Calm. Repetitive. You record it. Have it translated. It's a poem about shadows moving through Earth. About brave warriors who learn the footsteps of their enemies and teach the tunnels to whisper. No threats. No names. Just art. And somehow that's worse. Because it means they're not afraid. They're confident. Enough to put poetry on the airwaves while you're still coughing up jungle dust. Mainstream historical fact. The Viet Cong frequently used underground printing presses to distribute propaganda, both in rural villages and among their own troops. Some even had mimeograph machines powered by bicycle pedals to ensure quiet operation. Quirky fact. U.S. tunnel rats sometimes use tiny mirrors on sticks to peek around corners. Repurposed dentist tools and makeup compacts became life-saving gear. One soldier even swore by a Hello Kitty mirror his sister mailed him, saying it reflected death just fine. The week ends with no further missions. But not because things are quiet. Because something's coming. You can feel it. The tunnels are humming again. And this time, they're singing your name. You don't even hear the shell coming. It lands 50 yards from your position, closer than usual. You're used to the distant percussion, the irregular rhythm of jungle artillery playing background to your days. But this one makes the earth lift beneath your boots. It jolts your ribs and sends a thrum through the soles of your feet. You're not alone in feeling it. Everyone at the base freezes for a second, like someone hit pause on a cassette. Then comes the shouting. A second shell hits, and this time you see the fireball, feel the slap of hot air, taste the metallic sting of fresh shrapnel dancing through the air. The Viet Cong aren't just testing anymore. They're lighting up the map. The perimeter scrambles into motion. Sirens wail. Medics dash toward the wounded. Sandbags are flipped. Foxholes redug. You grab your sidearm and drop your helmet over your eyes as you run. It's not a full assault. Not yet. It's pressure. Psychological warfare. A reminder. And it works. You feel the message deep in your gut. We're still here. Underneath you. Around you. Watching. They call for reinforcements. But what they send first is you. Not to the fire line, no. You're not valuable up there with the grunts and mortarmen. You're going where they can't go. Under. Again. This time, the mission is bigger than a single tunnel. A network has been uncovered. 5 entrances scattered around the northeastern side of base, possibly connecting under your entire camp. No one knows how long it's been there. No one knows what's inside. But given the precision of this morning's shelling, the suspicion is strong. You're going in to confirm whether they've tunneled directly beneath your position. And if so, you're going to find out how deep the rabbit hole goes. They brief you with maps, shaky photos, and a lot of we think and maybe. You nod, gear up, and slide into the earth like it's a familiar sleeping bag. This time, though, you're not going alone. You're paired with a new guy, Hawkins, fresh from Da Nang. He's taller than you. Bad start. He breathes too loud. Worse. And he tries to crack jokes to fill the silence, which you immediately shut down with a single look. Quiet mouth, quiet boots, you whisper, or they'll hear us long before we hear them. He nods, chastened, and down you go. The tunnel smells like memory now. Wet clay, charcoal, rat droppings, the usual, but something is different. The air feels engineered. You can feel tiny currents, too regular to be natural. Someone's built ventilation here. Real airflow. That's rare. Most tunnels are like lungs under strain, barely exhaling. But this one, it breathes. You pass through several chambers. One's a supply room, Moldy rice sacks, rusted tools, a few boxes labeled in blocky Vietnamese script. Another's a rest space, with old hammocks slung between root-studded walls. The presence of hammocks means this isn't temporary. This tunnel complex has tenure. You sketch quick notes, mark the walls with chalk, and press forward. Then a sound. Faint, rhythmic, not the click of a trap or the scurry of a rat. Typing. You freeze. Hawkins doesn't hear it yet. He's too busy trying not to bump into the ceiling. You hush him, tilt your ear to the wall. Yup, definitely typing. A typewriter? Down here. You press on, guided by the click-clack like it's a Morse code drumbeat from the underworld. After a dozen slow feet, the tunnel opens into a wider chamber. This one more sophisticated than anything you've seen underground before. Wood-paneled walls, reinforced beams, a real desk, and behind it, a man in uniform, typing. Vietnamese, middle-aged, calm. He sees you, doesn't flinch. He even reaches over and presses the return key. Ding. Then he speaks. Slow, measured English. You're not supposed to be here yet. You raise your weapon, but you're too stunned to pull the trigger. Hawkins fumbles behind you, uncertain. You're the one called Ghost, the man says. They talk about you on the radio. You have 3 seconds to explain. You mutter, before I turn this office into a crater. But the man just smiles. He reaches under the desk, slowly. You prepare to fire. But instead of a gun, he lifts a book. He tosses it to you. You catch it, leather-bound, stamped with U.S. Army insignia. Inside, names, dates, tunnel locations. Your tunnel locations. Your team's locations. Ow! You begin. We listen, he says. Always. You look again at the desk. The typewriter is surrounded by notes in English. Not just copies of leaflets, intercepted transmissions, translated reports, some dated last week. This isn't just a propaganda center. It's an intelligence node. You step forward, stunned. But the man's already moving. He knocks over a lamp. Flames lick the desk. In seconds, the papers catch. And oh, you shout, lunging forward, but it's too late. The fire roars up the walls like it's been waiting. He's already diving into a hidden passage behind a desk. You pursue. Hawkins shouts your name, but it fades behind you as you sprint after the man, your heart thundering. The passage twists and plunges downward. It's slick. You slip, catch yourself, push on. You're close, so close you can hear his breath. But then, crack. The floor gives. You fall. Not far. 6 feet maybe. You land in a new chamber. Larger, darker, colder. And empty. No sign of the man. Only murals. Painted on the walls. Crude, yes, but haunting. One shows a tunnel rat crawling through roots. Another shows that same rat being devoured by the earth. Then you see the last panel. Your face. Your face, painted in rough strokes, but unmistakably you. Next to it, in Vietnamese, White Ghost. He learns our tunnels. We learn his. You swallow hard. Then, above your head, movement. Not the man. Hawkins. He lowers a rope, pale and shaking. Are you okay? He calls. You nod, too stunned to speak. He helps pull you out, and together, you race back through the now smoke-choked tunnels. You emerge coughing, gasping, blinking into the twilight. You hand a scorched book to your CO without a word. They take one look and call a secure meeting. Later that night, you're summoned to the radio tent. A senior officer wants a full debrief. You give it to them, but you leave out one detail. The painting. You don't know why you lie. Maybe because admitting that they see you, really see you, makes you feel more vulnerable than any booby trap ever could. Mainstream historical fact. The CU-Chi and Iron Triangle tunnel networks were so complex that some included conference rooms, kitchens with smokeless chimneys, and multi-level bunkers, making them miniature underground cities. Quirky fact. U.S. tunnel rats sometimes played music in their head to keep calm in the tunnels. One soldier famously hummed The Girl from Ipanema during every mission, said it kept his heartbeat slow and his aim steady. That night, You sit outside your tent, staring into the jungle. You can't hear the insects anymore. You only hear the typing. Click, clack, ding. And in your mind, the words echo. You're not supposed to be here yet. You wake before the sun. It's not the jungle sounds this time. Not the usual chorus of buzzing cicadas, birds, and the occasional distant rattle of small arms fire. No, it's a dream that pulls you out. A dream of clay walls closing in, of breathing tunnel dust so thick it chokes your memory. You lie still, barely blinking, staring at the roof of your tent like it's the sky. There's an odd piece to mornings in Vietnam, the kind that feels borrowed, like you've stolen a few quiet hours from the chaos waiting just out of reach. The coffee isn't ready yet, but the scent of it hangs in the air, mixing with engine grease and stale socks and the acrid residue of yesterday's gunpowder. You sit up, feet already in your boots before your mind fully registers you've moved. Today's mission has nothing to do with infiltration. You're going to help map the tunnels, not explore them, not crawl into them, just map them from above. And that's a first. A recon pilot buzzed the region last week with a low-flying drone balloon rig, some CIA tech still in testing. Supposedly, it scanned underground shifts in the terrain using ground-penetrating radar. The tech is new. The maps are blurry, but they show patterns. Potential main arteries of the tunnel network, interwoven like a termite nest stretching beneath a good chunk of forest floor. The brass wants to mark those tunnels, map the major hubs, maybe even collapse a few key chambers. And for that, they need a guide. That's you. But here's the thing. Mapping a tunnel from the outside is like diagnosing a stomach ache with a stethoscope taped to your shoe. Sure, you know the depth of the networks, their tricks, their tones, their stink. But from the surface, all you see is leaves and ants and damp earth. It's like trying to read Braille through a brick. Still, orders are orders. The morning is spent flying in a chopper with a cartographer who couldn't tell a punji stick from a banana tree. His hands tremble each time a bird startles the pilot. You try not to sigh too loudly. You point to ridges where airflow would make sense. You draw estimates with chalk on transparent acetate over the blurred prints from the balloon scan. You circle odd sinkholes, termite mounds too symmetrical, patches of grass that don't quite belong. And all the while, your brain is a pendulum, swinging back and forth between the firelit typewriter and the face of that calm Vietnamese man who said, "You're not supposed to be here yet." That wasn't a threat. It was worse. It was a schedule. Around noon, you land at a forward fire base to get water, refuel, and stretch your legs. And you find the letter. It's folded neatly, tucked under your cot's edge, like someone left it overnight. No name, no mark, just your nickname, Ghost. Your skin prickles. You open it. It's written in tight, clean English. Almost too clean, like it came from a typewriter. The contents are short. We learn you. You learn us. Stop looking for endings. The tunnels never stop. You reread it 3 times. Someone slipped it into your personal space. Inside a secure zone. Inside your tent. That's not a prank. That's a message. And it hits like a mine to the gut. You grab the letter and bring it to command. They frown, photocopy it, and say vague things about investigating. But you know how that'll go. Paperwork. A shrug. Maybe a psychologist visit. You're not crazy. You're being watched. And if they could get that close, what else have they touched? That night, back at base, you find a gear repacked. Just slightly. The way your shirt folds are off by an inch. Your rations are flipped. Your sidearm has a fingerprint on the grip, not yours. Whoever left the note wanted you to know. And suddenly, the walls feel thinner. The ground softer. The shadows longer. You sleep with a knife under your pillow. You dream of dirt again. 3 days later, everything changes. You're roused in the middle of the night by gunfire. Louder, sharper, closer. Then screams. Then the blaring of the emergency klaxon. The VC are inside the perimeter, not sneaking through wire, not dropping in from trees. From below, a tunnel opens behind the generator shack. One poor kid on guard duty doesn't stand a chance. Two more vanish, trying to respond. The base scrambles, bullets flying, confusion spreading faster than fire in dry bamboo. You're pulled into action. No prep, no harness, no map, just your flashlight, your sidearm, and that terrible sense that this is what the letter meant. The tunnels never stop, and now they're fighting back. You slide into the entry breach and immediately feel the difference. This isn't their usual tunnel. This one was built for invasion. Wider, faster, no dead ends. A straight vector angled directly at your supply depot. You charge in headlong, crawling, pistol ready, light bobbing like a will-o'-the-wisp. The walls whip past, roots grabbing at your shoulders, the scent of gunpowder mixing with the heavier stink of blood and diesel. You catch movement ahead. Two VC soldiers. Armed. You fire. One falls. The other runs, and you chase. You're breathing ragged but precise. You're deeper than you've ever been before you realize it. You're beneath your base's barracks, which means they could be setting charges right now. You radio out. No answer. Dead signal. That's when you find the chamber. It's not a bomb station. It's a command post. Not theirs. Yours. An exact replica of your base's communications tent. Tables, fake radios, even a dummy in a chair. It's a mirror, a mock-up, and there's a wall covered in photos. You, your buddies, everyone at camp. Names, routines, patrol schedules. You step back. There's a small chalkboard, too. On it, in clear English. We don't need to see the sky to know when it's raining. You start snapping photos. It's all you can do. Then the wall explodes behind you. Dust, wood, screaming. You turn just in time to see a tunnel collapse and a figure vanish into the smoke. You try to follow, but this time you don't get far. The wall's grown. The air shifts, and a trapdoor falls shut above you. You're sealed in. For 10 seconds, you panic. For 10 more, you breathe. You've trained for this. You feel the clay, the roots, the angles, and you begin to dig sideways, clawing your way out like a mole, grit between your teeth, pulse in your ears, and as you dig, the words echo again in your head. Stop looking for endings. Mainstream historical fact. During the war, U.S. tunnel rat units reported multiple incidents of Viet Cong tunnels leading inside American bases without ever being detected during construction. Quirky fact. Some tunnel rats carried small spoons as digging tools, believing their slim design made less noise than combat shovels and allowed faster side burrowing when trapped. Historians still argue whether the tunnel infiltrations near Siu Chi in 1969 were part of a coordinated sabotage campaign or a psychological ploy to convince the Americans they were never safe. You break through, collapse into open air, covered in mud, panting triumphant. But above you, your base is on fire, and somewhere beneath your feet, the war still rides, and types, and learns. You don't even remember how you made it back to your feet. There's a rawness to everything now. The world feels sharper, like someone turned up the contrast on reality and left it that way. The mud still clings to your face. Your shirt hangs damp and stiff, and your knuckles are bleeding for where you clawed through the clay like a man buried alive. And in a way, you were. You stumble into camp just as the chaos starts to recede. Smoke curls upward from the generator shack, black and accusing. Half a barracks wall is missing, ripped apart by a satchel charge. Medics scurry like ants, hauling bodies both screaming and still. And somewhere in that mix, someone's trying to hand you a canteen. Another guy's shouting for an after-action report. But all you can think about are the photos you saw underground. The replica command tent, the fake radio, the chalkboard quotes still echoing in your skull. We don't need to see the sky to know when it's raining. They've been watching you, watching all of you, like ants under glass. And here's the real kicker. This wasn't just sabotage. It was theater, a message sent in smoke and blood. Don't look for endings. 2 hours later, you're hauled into debrief. It's colder than usual in the field tent. Maybe it's just the air conditioning working overtime. Or maybe it's the frost coming off the brass. One of them, a full colonel, leans in close, voice low like he's whispering bedtime stories to ghosts. "We've got confirmation this wasn't an isolated breach," he says. At least 3 other fire bases reported similar tunnels. One made it into a mess hall. You blink. Mess hall? Imagine biting into your powdered eggs and realizing the floor is about to explode under you. You almost laugh, but catches in your throat. They want your opinion. Your gut. Do you think this was a dry run? You tell them no. This wasn't practice. This was the main act. And somehow, they believe you. Or maybe they just needed someone to say it out loud. They reassign you to a new sector the next day. Too risky to keep you in one place, they say. You're valuable. You've seen too much. Heard too much. You're sent upriver, near the Cambodian border. Dense jungle. Thicker clay. Fewer known tunnels. At least on paper. You ride out in a jeep with 3 new guys. Green replacements, barely old enough to shave. They call you sir, even though you outrank no one. They've heard the stories. Maybe some are true. One of them, a wiry kid from Iowa, asks you, "What's it like down there?" You look at him for a long moment. Then you say, "It's like being buried inside a whisper." And the whisper doesn't like you. That shuts him up. Good. The new camp is smaller. Less formal. A forward outpost strung together with ambition, corrugated steel, and repurposed beer cans. There's even a dog. A mutt with 3 legs and the name Pancake stenciled on its flank. Morale, you guess. But you don't get to settle in. They send you back under within 48 hours. Another network. Another potential breach. Another whisper waiting to be heard. This time it's different. No fresh air. No obvious threats. Just a sense of waiting. You move slowly, flashlight off, fingertips tracing the walls like you're reading ancient scripture. It's here, deep underground, the world miles above your head in spirit, if not in geography, that you find something new. A library, not a Western one. A tunnel chamber filled with scrolls. Carefully stacked, wrapped in plastic, tied with string. Names written in soot on bamboo tags. Some in Vietnamese, others in French, a few in English. You recognize a name. Jeffries, a tunnel rat who disappeared last year during a mop-up op south of Da Nang. No body ever recovered. No trace. His name sits there like a forgotten footnote. Then another. Cooper. Haskins. Ortiz. You feel your lungs tighten. This is a catalog. Not of the dead. Of the lost. Of everyone the tunnel swallowed and never gave back. You back out slowly, heart pounding. No footsteps behind you. No traps this time. Just the suffocating realization that the Viet Cong weren't just digging to kill. They were archiving, studying, remembering. And that's worse, because forgetting is what keeps you sane. You report the library. Command sends in intelligence. The scrolls are boxed up, tagged, shipped out under heavy guard. But that's not what sticks with you. What sticks is what was scrawled on the wall in charcoal. What we take, we do not lose. What you lose, you never take back. It's not a threat. It's a philosophy, a doctrine written in dirt and silence. And it haunts you, because you start dreaming about the ones you left behind. Guys who crawled in and didn't crawl back. Faces you told yourself were quick deaths. Clean exits. Lucky shots. But what if they weren't? What if some are still down there, living in the dark, forgetting their names? Or worse, remembering everything. A week later, your hands start shaking. Not from fear, from memory. You wake up clawing at the walls of your tent. You see tunnel beams in your soup. You flinch when a jeep backfires. You can't stop listening for footsteps that never arrive. The chaplain tries to talk to you, offers you a seat, a prayer, a Snickers bar from home. You stare at him and ask, "Do you believe hell is under us?" He doesn't answer, just gives you the candy. You're given an option. Rotation. They'll send you home early. Stateside. Decompress. Tell your story to some intel guys in suits and maybe get your name in a file no one reads. Or you stay. Keep digging. Keep crawling. Keep being the one who goes where even ghosts don't dare to linger. You make your choice. And that night, the dog Pancake curls up by your cot. Doesn't bark, just rests its head on your boot like it knows something. Like it's guarding you from the dreams you haven't had yet. Mainstream historical fact. By the later stages of the Vietnam War, U.S. forces established psychological operation units, PSYOP, specifically to counteract the demoralizing effect of tunnel warfare, which was taking an immense toll on soldier morale. Quirky fact. Some tunnel rats developed their own underground navigation language, tapping on tunnel walls in rhythmic patterns, part Morse code, part superstition, to signal each other in pitch-black tunnels. Historians still argue whether the Vietnamese underground libraries discovered in 1970 were functional intelligence hubs or ritual spaces created to honor the war's casualties. You lay back in your cot, eyes open, staring at the canvas roof again. You whisper to no one, "I'm still listening," and the earth listens back. By now, the difference between waking and dreaming is thin as rice paper. The tunnel's always there behind your eyes, just waiting. You eat, you sleep, you breathe, but you do it all from inside that winding darkness. You hear it in the rustle of your poncho, in the rattle of cutlery, in the way the rain seeps through the seams of your tent like memory itself is leaking. You used to know when you were above ground. Now it all feels like part of the same descent. Orders come down like they always do. Another suspected tunnel cluster, another daylight sweep. The brass is tense. There's been a spike in ambushes lately, and you're briefed in whispers. They think the tunnels are expanding again. But this time, they're not just worried about proximity to the base. They're worried about scale. You're flown to Firebase Tempest, out in Quang Tri Province. The name alone feels like a joke. There's no storm here. Just long stretches of churned-up red earth, young grunts with cracked lips, and a commander who looks 20 years older than his rank. He doesn't salute you, doesn't smile, just hands you a folded map and says, "We lost contact with the whole squad." You nod. You know what that means. You've always known. The entrance is barely visible, half covered by creeping brush and a rotten stretch of bamboo matting. You could walk right over it. Maybe someone did. But when you pry it open with a bayonet and let your flashlight hover over the first few feet, you can tell right away. This one goes deep. A breath catches in your throat, but you swallow it. No audience here. No cameras. No medals waiting at the other end. Just the usual clay, shadow, and the unspeakable weight of choices. You wriggle inside. The walls pinch, close immediately. Your shoulders scrape roots. Sweat pools under your armpits even before the first turn. Your flashlight flickers. New batteries, still twitchy. You reach the first chamber. Empty. Second chamber, bedrolls, some still warm. Third chamber, scratch marks. On the walls. Not from tools. From fingernails. You start crawling faster. The tunnels stretch farther than expected. There are no signs of structural fatigue. No cave-ins. Just more forks, more options. It's like someone planned a maze with your mind in it. Eventually, you find them. Or you find what's left. For bodies. Not buried, not booby-trapped. Just lying there, as if they laid down and gave up. No visible wounds. One still has his radio pressed to his mouth, the cord snapped. You whisper their names, one by one, from the dog tags. Your voice sounds far away. What happened here? Gas. Psychological breakdown? You check for traps anyway. Reflex. But there's nothing. Then you find it. A short note, carved into the dirt with a spent bullet casing. It wasn't the Kong. That's it. 5 words. You stare at it until your eyes blur. What could it mean? And what could possibly not be the zone down here? The return trip takes longer. Part of you doesn't want to leave them. But you can't carry 4 bodies alone. You mark the location on your map. Seal the coordinates into your brain like a scar. You're almost back at the surface when you hear it. Not behind you. Below you. Movement. Shifting. Not boots. Scraping. You freeze, cheek pressed to the tunnel floor, heart slowing in terror. It keeps moving just under your chest. A crawl space beneath a crawl space. You whisper into the dirt. I know you're there. It stops, and then something taps. Once, twice, 3 times, like Morse code, like a message, but you don't understand it. You're not meant to. You get out. You collapse against the mud outside the tunnel, gasping like you've just surfaced from drowning. A corpseman tries to haul you up, but you wave him off. You need a moment, a lifetime of them. You hand the map to command. You say, "Don't send anyone else in." They ask why. You shake your head. Because you don't have the words. Not anymore. Weeks pass. You stop going underground. Not by choice. Your body just quits. You develop tremors in your right hand. Your lungs whistle when you breathe. They send you to Da Nang for a rest eval. The doctor there tells you you've got subterranean fatigue syndrome, which is just a fancy way of saying you're cracked but not broken. They offer you a new post. Communications. Above ground. You take it. And at night, when it's quiet, you hear the rustling again. Not in the trees. In your head. Like someone still crawling behind your thoughts. Like the tunnel never let go. You're rotated home in March. The flight's long. The sky is impossibly blue. A stewardess smiles at you like you're a normal person. You nod, grateful and exhausted. Your boots still carry a trace of Vietnam's clay. You settle back into civilian life. Sort of. You mow lawns, stack shelves. You date a girl who works in a bookstore and who never asks about your service. You appreciate that. She just lets you be, but you still sleep with the lights on. Not bright, just enough to remind you you're not 6 feet under. Your dreams aren't violent. They're quiet. Too quiet. Sometimes you dream you're crawling again. Sometimes you dream the tunnel opens into a city. A hidden one, with its own language, its own sky, and you're not alone. One morning, years later, you receive a package. No return address. Inside is a cassette tape, unlabeled. You play it. It's static mostly, then tapping. Rhythmic. Familiar. You sit back. Let it play. You don't understand the message, but you know it's meant for you. Mainstream historical fact. By 1972, psychological trauma among tunnel rats had reached crisis levels, leading to the first serious efforts by the U.S. Army to study and treat long-term subterranean combat stress, often considered a precursor to modern PTSD protocols. Quirky fact, some tunnel rats carried tiny religious trinkets, like miniature street Christopher medals or laminated prayer cards, sewn inside their uniforms, believing they offered stealth protection against being heard underground. Historians still argue whether the Viet Cong's deepest tunnels included mythic city chambers, or whether returning soldiers' recollections of such places were exaggerated by trauma and hallucination. Now, you're no longer in the tunnel. Not really. You're lying still, the weight of clay fading from your chest. There's no flashlight flickering in your hand, no scurrying beneath your ribs. Just a steady hum of silence around you, and the faint, comforting sense of knowing you've come back up for air. You made it. You survived the squeeze, the shadows, the silence, and all the voices that echo through earth too tightly packed to let them go. You're not crawling anymore. You're resting. And now, as the story softens and the memories dissolve into the folds of your pillow, let yourself breathe a little slower, a little deeper. It's okay to let go of the sound of footsteps. You're not being followed. Not tonight. The jungle is far behind you, wrapped in mist and forgotten humidity. Let the cool air settle around your skin. Let your heartbeat level out. Let each word stretch out like the last rays of sunlight curling down through trees that no longer hide eyes. You're not underground. You're not hunted. You're not lost. You're just here, in a bed, in the quiet. Let the whispers fade into stillness. Let the dirt fall away from your skin. And as you drift off, remember this. Even the darkest tunnels end somewhere. Even the deepest ones eventually rise. Good night, tunnel rat. You've earned your silence. End of script. Sweet dreams.